where to start. Random stuff.
Random stuff. Random stuff
Yeah,
sounds good.
random bookish stuff. Okay,
Yeah.
so I would love to know how, like, you kind of said a little bit, but like, how did you get started in cover design? Like, I would love to know like how you actually decided to do that.
Well, I was actually an author, and I got sort of into this anthology, and I was helping organize it, and I was like doing all the formatting and everything like that. And we had a cover designer lined up because it was a charity anthology. And about 2 days, I think, before we were due to go live, the cover designer decided to drop out. And I'm like, ah!
Oh no.
So I'm like, well, okay, well, too late to find anyone else. I'll do it, you know.
Right?
And I just fell in love with it. It was just so much fun. I'm like, why am I writing? I could be doing
Right?
this instead. And I haven't written since, or other than like about 3 chapters to finish the book off and make the publisher happy.
It's hard to, because that is one thing I have been struggling with is getting that balance of the like my creativity balance to be able to write and do cover art.
Yeah,
Like both are
exactly.
draining individually, but doing both, especially as a business, is kind of exhausting, to be totally honest with you.
Oh, I can imagine. And I can't imagine like doing, you've got your story that you're writing, but you've also got the
Mhm.
story for, especially for pre-mades, that you've got to make up. And you know, at least the custom the author gives you their, you know, ideas and story and stuff, so you know what it's about.
Yeah.
But trying to keep that many stories straight in your mind, doing it all day to day must be really hard.
I will say one thing that has been good is that when I'm trying to figure out a pre-made cover, it's been kind of nice that a lot of times, you know how like sometimes you get these like incomplete random story ideas to write. And I love that if I just I'm not gonna have time for this and I can use that story idea to create a pre-made cover instead. And I can
That's a
like
good idea.
mentally let it go.
Yeah.
So that's been good, but my
Yeah.
list of stuff I'm still gonna write is still like
Yeah.
a couple of years long.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Well, just the gender bender fairy tale retelling series I'm working on because, I'm busy.
Yeah.
Like that is probably going to take me to complete it just from the ideas I already have. It's probably going to take me at least 4 or 5 years to complete the entire
Wow.
series.
Wow.
But I'm also not expecting to be able to publish more than like I think 2 books a year is going to be pushing it for me, in all honesty.
Yeah, it's still a
So,
good amount. So, yeah, I wouldn't worry about
yeah,
it.
right.
With
That's
everything you've
kind of
got going on, that's pretty impressive, frankly.
two books a year is going to be interesting to see if that works. Because I mean, it took me like 5 years to do this first one, but
Yeah, but now you've got the idea, the process down, it'll be easier.
yeah, that has definitely been really, really helpful figuring out what my process should be and kind of just getting into that groove, but also finding a writing group, like people who write with me, even though we all
Yeah.
write totally, and it helps that there's a couple other people that are like us that are authors and cover designers. And so like
Mm-hmm.
I can throw stuff in there too. And they're like, oh, that's terrible. That's not going to sell. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
we are not opinionated in any way.
No, of course not. Hey, it always makes you better.
Right?
Usually makes you
Yeah.
better. But,
So
yeah.
I know that you've done some like traditional covers, and I'm really curious how you got like, did they find you? Did you find them? Like, how did you
How did I get them?
reach that bridge? Because that is like that doorway that, almost every indie cover designer wishes they could get to. So I'm really curious, how did that happen?
I was very lucky. I ran what's called the Book Marketing Summit in 2017, I think it was. And I needed a publisher for that. So I sort of, asked all my friends, and someone said, oh, yeah, you should go and contact them. So I did, and he came on my summit. And he turns out he actually knew my husband. Didn't know that at the time.
Oh,
I know. He'd seen him speak at a conference on websites because he's a website designer. And so he remembered
oh,
him because he liked his talk. And so he's like, oh, yeah, sure, I'll do your summit. And then when I got into this, I contacted him again because my husband was like, you should contact him. And so I contacted him and said, Actually, I've become a full-time cover designer now. Would you by any
Yeah.
chance be looking for one? He's like, oh, we totally are. I'm like,
Oh
yay.
my gosh. That is
So yeah,
so cool.
it really was. I mean, they're a non-fiction publisher mostly, but they just started getting into fiction, and they didn't have anyone who could do people, which is kind of necessary for
Yeah.
fiction. And
Yes.
so he said, "Send me your portfolio." So I did, and their art director contacted me the same day. So yeah, it was amazing. I
This
think
is
I'm up to
buddy.
4 now.
Oh, eh. Sorry. My dog is like trying to lick my feet and I'm so
Oh.
anti-feet, like everything. Oh boy. If you don't stop, you're kicked to your bed, okay? Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. I had no clue that that's how you got into doing like the
Yeah,
traditional covers.
yeah, yeah. It was amazing. I think I'm still the only one that does fiction covers for them. So
That
yeah,
makes
it's
sense,
cool.
especially if they're
They
just
don't have
starting
many.
out with.
Yeah, and they don't have many. They only get like sort of one a month, and sometimes not even that many. But they're growing. So
Still though, like even just having that on your book cover designer portfolio is like huge. All right, you in your bed. Sorry. I love him dearly, but after a whole day of like a 2-year-old needing all over mommy, like
yeah,
sometimes I need space.
and not someone licking your feet.
Yeah, not so much. Oh.
Oh dear. So I don't think I know. How did you get started in cover designing?
So ironically, last not last spring, yeah, 2020 spring, I started looking for, like, I had this book almost done, and
Oh,
then I was like, I need to find a book cover for it, and I decided that I don't have the patience for querying and the like years that trad publishers take to publish a book.
oh yeah.
I don't. When I've completed something, I want it out there, which is why as a designer, I can't do like big sales where I'm saving up like 100 covers and put them all. I can't do that because I get too excited and I'm like, I need to show you everything.
I
Yeah,
know. I'm the same.
it's terrible.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I was looking, like I decided I was gonna do indie, so I was like, well, I need to find a book cover, and I was looking at stuff, and I was like, I can make that. Like, why am I not? And then of course I got this crazy idea in my head that I would make book covers and sell them as a practice to become good enough to make my own book cover. And as you well know from the last several days of my ADHD brain being stuck in a loop of like, oh my gosh, I'm sending this off to a final editor and I still don't have a cover. Like, yeah.
Oh,
So I got into it because I was like a naive, cocky woman that was like, I could totally do my own stuff and save the money.
yeah.
But I mean, to be fair though, like I'm at a point in my business now that it fully supports for me to be able to. Sorry, you're just have to ignore the squeaking. I know with your dogs, you're used to it probably. But, but yeah, I, I, it's fully supported to where like it's able to pay a lot of our bills now, and it's able to pay like even with me just doing it part time, like
Yeah.
the fact that I'm able to afford professional editing, 2 rounds of it, not even just one, because again, my ADHD brain, after I finished the first draft, I knew there were so many problems with it, and I literally could not get into working on any of them until I had a round of editing done because it was just so overwhelming and I shut down. So
Yeah.
I'm really glad that I found an amazing editor that was like, you know what? I don't normally take first drafts, but I understand what your problem is. Let me help you. Oh, I
Oh
now
my
refer
goodness.
her to
Yeah.
like everybody.
No, nice. Yeah. Yeah, I had some
Yeah.
really good editors when I was writing, and yeah, they make such a difference. Oh my goodness. I was
Right.
lucky I did
And it's,
developmental edit on the first one because I really didn't know what I was doing, and I thought that'll
yeah.
just help, like work out if I'm any good at this, and yeah, made a big difference.
Yes, it was funny because I sent my book to Logan
Oh yeah,
after I hired her to help me with. She has like multiple packages, and like I was like, you know what, I need all the help I can get. So like I did her biggest, most expensive package, which is part of why her opinion matters so much to me since she's helping me launch this book. And it was so funny because she pointed out some of my issues, which I agreed
Mhm.
on. Like they were ones that no one else had pointed out to me, but once she said it, I was like, oh, this feedback I did get, that's what's causing that. Like it was so nice. But
Nice.
it was funny because she messaged me and she's like, you need this edited still? I was like, well, yeah. I was like, but it's a just fair warning. It's already been edited. Like I am not that amazing of a writer. I had a really good editor who was nice and did 2 rounds for me.
Wow.
And yeah, because she did like a main one that I went through and did all the fixes, and then she went back through and like anything that I may have missed from her stuff or like stuff she missed, she just did like a quick line edit sort of thing. But
Oh, cool.
yeah, it was just funny though. I was cause she's helping me out with another project I'm working on, and I sent the stuff to her, and she's like, "Yeah, I can tell your other work was edited." I'm like, "Yes."
Yeah.
I'm not a bad writer, but you
Yeah, this is
know,
tough.
yeah.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, I don't know if I'd actually be ready to publish this, let alone have the anthology next month, if I wasn't doing cover design that makes it so I can afford to do it. Because like beforehand, there's no way I could have paid for the $500 artist I just hired, or like
Yeah. Yeah.
there's no way.
Yeah. No, I'm kind of the same. I'm finally paying the mortgage and everything now. And yeah, makes such a difference. Makes you feel like
Yeah.
you're doing something that's like worthwhile. Kind of.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
Well, and I know it's funny because I definitely did notice that like once I started paying my bills with it and like relying on it more, it kind of took some of the fun away. So
all
like
right.
it feels so much more like a job. And that's definitely put a bit of a damper on my creativity a bit, which is part of why I'm trying to make sure that my writing doesn't turn into that. Like I don't need both of my creative outlets to be really heavy, you know?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Yeah. At least with the writing, you can do it on your timeline.
yeah. That was
Which
another
helps.
reason I was like, I could never do trad because if life
I
happens, I need to be able to take a break for life.
Yeah. I did both. I started indie and then I was really lucky. I didn't have to do all the letters and the query letters and everything like that. They approached me. So I
Oh,
was very lucky. I had it was in Lit RPG, so it's a small trad publisher, and one of the people that they published, they asked around all their authors and said, "Does anyone know a girl who writes Lit RPG?" And they came up with my name. So they approached me
oh,
and
that's
said, "Oh, hi."
cool.
Okay then. That was
That's
kind of
awesome.
all it was,
Have
really.
you noticed? Sorry, the Lit RPG thing made me think of this. Have you looked at Lit RPG on Amazon recently?
Oh yeah.
They must have done a big crackdown on the covers because, like, a month ago, there
Uh-huh.
were like penis plants on half the covers and like nipples popping out and, vagina plants. All
I
of that's
think
gone.
yeah, they're more the harem covers than the Lit RPG.
But it was just
There's,
interesting because when you did
yeah.
research Lit RPG, that was what popped up all the time for me.
Oh, I
Was
know.
like that was what was
Same
popping up
authors.
in the top. Yeah.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah, when it was
It's
like all the
literally
top
the same.
selling ones.
Yeah.
So I'm
But yeah,
curious
they
since I
are the
know
lit.
they were.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
aren't the lit RPG. They're more the fight scenes, which are
Yeah.
really cool, like the big monsters and the fight scenes and stuff. But the harem ones, yeah, they haven't been able to do AMS ads for a while, and now obviously they've cut down on it. So we'll see.
Yeah. Well, and I know since Amazon's been doing some cracking down on their like I've been hearing it from romance and fantasy as well. And so like I'd wondered when they were gonna get to lit RPG, and I was kind of blown away when I looked the other night and like all of that was gone from the lit RPG
Wow,
stuff when I searched it.
wow.
Yeah.
I know they're
I was not
coming out with a lit RPG category, so maybe that's kind of in like the works as such, as in they're trying to work out which books actually are lit RPG and the harem ones are. So maybe they're trying to separate them so that they get them in the search.
that might be. Well, and that kind of gives hope a little bit too for I know that some publishers and stores are starting to put forth the effort to do the division of YA and new adult. And there's been a lot of people like requesting it from Amazon.
Oh,
So like Barnes and Noble has it. They've
wow.
now broken that up. And hi.
Is that a dog toy or something that's the
Yeah,
squeaky?
it's squeaky toy. Okay, you're a good boy. Yes, you are. Thank you. No coffee. You're okay. But yeah, Barnes and Noble added that category. It has less than 100 books on it total right now. And I would say most of them are probably like college romance kind of stuff.
Okay.
But I was like, okay, the fact that they put forth that category, like it would be really, especially with there being only 100 books in it, it would be really smart for people who are trying to sell their books through Barnes and Noble to use that
Mm-hmm.
category, especially with new adult fantasy and with how many people are asking for that category specifically.
Yeah.
It would be really
Oh,
smart
that'd
for
be
people to
interesting.
start using it because it's there,
Yeah. Oh, can't wait to see what happens.
right?
Yeah. Very cool.
That'll be fun. I'm always nosy about all that stuff, especially as I've been digging into more of it. Like,
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I
yeah,
kind of hear about the lit RPG stuff a lot because I mean all the author groups on there, but I haven't really heard about that one yet. So
yeah.
that's really cool.
Was the interesting thing. I hadn't heard about it from anybody. I was curious because
And you just
I
went and
was
found it.
hearing the argument about how, and I know I've been running into it where a lot of the YA has like really graphic sex scenes, and you're like, is that really YA? Like, I understand that they're teens, but like, there's a certain level of graphic that, it's iffy. And so I
Yeah.
was curious, just like, what would it take for big publishers to start using that tag? And then when I saw that Barnes and Noble already has it, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I even emailed Amazon to find out what it would take, and they're like, all it takes is enough authors to message us from their author accounts requesting it, and we'll make it. They're like, we're counting it up. We're just waiting till we hit the right number. Okay,
Wow. That's really cool.
yeah, we'll see how long it takes to hit that point, but
Yeah.
that'll
Yeah.
be nice.
Yeah. It's the trad publishers are, 12 months out. I know when I do covers for them, it's 12 months before the book gets published.
Yeah.
You know, Barnes and Noble, if they've finally come up with a new category, that's obviously all like on the back of the book and everything. So,
Uh huh.
yeah, I guess it's going to be 12 months before they get their books in it. So we'll
I'm
see.
starting to have more and more authors hiring me too that are doing more distant bookings. Like almost everything I've worked on over the last 3 or 4 months isn't coming out until like next year or the year after. And they're like, we
Wow.
just want to have it all like ready so we don't have to stress it. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna complain. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I just finished one that's going to come out fall next year. So, yeah.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and it's been interesting. I've been starting to have some authors booking me to do an entire series of covers all at the same time, which is actually really smart because I know
It
not all
is.
cover designers like lock in the price for like the whole series.
Yeah.
So like it's smart and it's kind of nice to be able to just do it all at once.
Yeah,
But
oh, I prefer that. So I've done a few like that. I think it's really good from the point of view of the author because then everything is going to look the same because it's not like, a year between projects or whatever and your cover design has improved and
and then
as
your
you
first
go.
cover looks terrible compared to the rest. Yeah.
Exactly.
Actually, what is it? There's a series that I get sent all the time of book covers that I get sent a lot for like contemporary fantasy. And it's like a woman normally facing away and in like a black dress and a moon. Like if I can't remember what it's called. If I sent you it though, you'd be like, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's on our mood boards even actually. And
Probably.
it was so interesting to me to look at it because the first cover you could tell was very photo manipulation. And then the second one, you could tell the artist was trying to learn how to be more illustrated. And
Okay.
like, they would get a big change. And then each cover for the rest of the series turned into like, it just morphed. So like, it felt cohesive still, but maybe it's just because I'm so used to like critiquing book covers for my job. Like,
Yeah.
it was really interesting to see that and go, oh. So I've been contemplating maybe booking next year after tax season for my artist for book one to have her go ahead and make the covers for the others while her art style is still similar.
I think
Like,
that's a good
go
idea.
ahead and do that.
Yeah, I think that's a
And
good idea.
before she becomes more expensive because she's like already
Yeah,
at the top of my budget.
yeah. I mean that too, but it's when you look at the book covers, and I've now done 3 series where I've done the whole lot in one go, and the series just looks so much more cohesive than the ones that
Yeah,
I've done where I've like done this one and then 6 months later I've done this one, and it shows.
it does. It does. Well, and also a lot of times too, cover designers, like I know I give a small discount if I'm doing the whole series at once. If I'm doing more than 3 books in a series, I'll do like a small discount or like I'll throw in like some marketing material or
Yeah,
something like that, kind of to help counter the cost of a series of covers.
yeah,
Um, like, but at the same time, I can't always afford to do that if I'm doing them one at a time.
no,
So I do
exactly.
like it when people like tonight I'm starting concept stage for a trilogy that I'm really
Oh,
excited for.
nice.
Actually, the same author that I did the henna magic
Oh yeah, I
cover.
know.
Yeah, I'm starting a
Oh,
trilogy for her tonight,
cool.
and I'm like beyond excited because she's so much fun to
Oh
work
yeah,
with, and like her cover is so pretty. So
that's
this is
awesome.
going to be something really
That's
interesting.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what? So I know you're working on like niching down because one, you're getting booked, and two, you're having a lot more like your skill level has been increasing so fast lately. And I think a lot of it is because you have been focusing on specific genres. So like what genres are you focusing on right now?
Right now, dark fantasy and PNR, so sort of the fantasy romancing kind of area.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
Because that
and
really
I'm
you have that
pretty
kind of
urban
creative
fantasy.
mind.
Sorry?
You have that kind of creative mind. So that makes a lot of
Correct.
sense. And especially considering where your origins started with
Yeah,
covers and your writing, um, like with it being that kind of, slightly different genre, but the like fantasy kind of stuff,
yeah,
that totally makes sense for you.
yeah.
Totally
I
makes
just
sense.
love fantasy. I've been reading it since who knows when. I just can't
Yeah.
get enough of fantasy. I remember growing up thinking, if I could just read fantasy books for a living, I'd be happy.
Right? Yes. Like, I totally get the people that decide to become like paid beta readers and like
Yeah,
that kind of thing. So I'm like, yeah, sometimes you're having to read some really rough stuff, but at the
yeah.
same time, like you get paid to read all day.
True.
That's
This is
awesome.
true.
Like
Yeah.
I don't do paid beta reading, but like every once in a while, you know me. Whoa, sorry. Dog jumped on me and I dropped it. um, but you know me. I like to get to know my author's stories fairly well before I start working on a cover because, fantasy, it's a lot more work you really have to know it to make a cover that's going to make sense.
Yeah.
And I have one that I'm doing the cover in November, and it's like this steampunk
Oh
kind of
wow.
thing. And I'm beta reading it right now. And it's one, it's so good. And two, I'm having a really hard time not starting that cover right now because I'm so inspired by it and like the story's
Awesome.
so good.
That's
And it'll
awesome.
be kind of cool too because we're doing those a lot of retellings right now have the style, but so does steampunk of the like kind of vector type where I know it's vector art for the most part, but it looks like it's illustrated and it looks more
Okay.
like a storybook kind of thing, like Furyborn and that kind of stuff. But yeah, we're doing that for her cover, and I'm like, oh, I want to work on it, but I just don't have the time. Like, we're starting
Yeah.
that November. I've only got like 6 weeks, and I get to start her cover. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm finishing that beta read this week, this weekend, so I can get that back to her so that she'll have it all ready to
Nice.
go. But
I've not read any steampunk yet.
right, I've done
Yeah.
a couple, not very many, but that's partially because it's a small niche right now. Like, there's not a whole ton of it has a very loyal following for an audience of readers,
I
but
can
it's
imagine.
not super big. Like right now, I would say paranormal romance and retellings, and then like man chess romance kind of stuff tend to be the biggest genres I'm seeing at the moment, but steampunk's
Yeah.
had its time, and I'm sure that it's going to come back for round two, like,
Oh yeah.
or
Bound
6
to.
or 7.
Yeah.
Like, I'm
Yes.
fully expecting that. I think that's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be interesting. No, I've not actually read any yet, even. So,
Really? Oh man,
yeah.
I had like a year where I was like obsessed with steampunk. Like even my Halloween. Okay, see, this,
Oh, very cute.
people are like, I need love. I, yeah, you're a good boy. Okay, in your bed. Come on, in your bed. Thank you. Sorry, I told you he's
Right.
very needy. He's so sweet, but he's very needy.
Oh.
He was abandoned, so like
Oh,
we
poor
found
thing.
him in Uptown Charlotte. So he's not used to. He needs lots of loves to reassure him he is wanted and loved and needed.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Good to cuddle with.
Oh yes. Normally the evenings, like we do a lot of cuddling. And it's kind of hard because he tries to cuddle while I'm working, and if he bumps me wrong, I'm like set back a long time. So it's a little brutal. So he
Yeah.
knows he has to stand. Yeah, like he has to stay on his side of the couch while I work, and then afterwards I like watch an episode of something and we just cuddle. So
Oh.
he's not ignored. He's just really needy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Yeah. One day we'll get a dog.
When I was pregnant, I had another dog, and she was so sweet. She was also a rescue, but she was a Boston Terrier. And she was I don't think she would have been as good with kids. And she was an old, like, she got sick and we had to put her down while I was pregnant. Um,
Oh,
but she was kind of old and crotchety. So I really don't think she would have done nearly as well with an infant or
yeah.
a toddler. But he's been amazing. I mean, I didn't want a rescue when we found him. I didn't want a rescue because I was nervous that they were going to come with behaviors that were not going to be appropriate for a baby or a toddler. Like, there's nothing against rescues, just,
Yeah.
you know. And he has never had any sort of negative reaction to her in any way.
Oh, that's awesome.
Even when she climbs into his crate with him and he's trapped in there with her because she wants to cuddle.
Oh, that's awesome.
Right?
I
And
guess he
it's
likes to
funny
cuddle.
because right? Well, and it's funny because he'll be outside and she crawls into his crate and like plays in there without him and plays with his toys and stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Oh, that's
She
awesome.
gets jealous when he gets his own ball because she wants it. Like, they crack
Oh,
me up. When she
oh,
gets bigger, I have a feeling he's going to be sleeping in her bed and
yep,
they will be best friends.
yep, yep. You know it. Oh dear. Yeah, crazy.
Love it. So, how long did you write?
Oh, I think it was about 2 years. Not
Yeah.
very long. Maybe it was. Yeah, I think it was about 2 years. I wrote one. The first book was 162,000 words, so it was about that
As
thick.
a
The book.
beast.
Uh-huh.
As
It
a
literally was
beast.
about that thick. And
Yeah.
then I did a sort of a short story about the other side. So the baddie, if you like, was the main character, and that was only 32,000 words, and that was my like reader magnet. And then I planned out book two, and book two was 167,000. And then I discovered cover design. And so book three was 10 chapters. And then I squished the whole lot into one massive book. I think, I'm not kidding, I think it's if it was printed, it would probably be that wide. It's 1,078 pages, I think. Something like that. 35 and
It's
a half
funny
hours
because
on video, on audio. It's really freaking long.
I'm starting to look into audio stuff because I'm like,
Uh-huh.
I know most of my friends and family read audio, they prefer audio,
Yeah.
and I feel like readers are expecting it more and more. So I'm kind of like starting to dig into
What to do?
That's like a hot mess of like whole other stuff to figure out and like a ton of legalities to figure out. It's kind of intimidating, honestly.
Well, are you going to go like wide? Or are you going to go? I can't even remember the name of it. The Amazon one.
No clue. The only thing that I know is for my books for the beginning, unless, Logan tells me definitely don't do it. But for the time being, I think ebooks, other than my reader magnets, are going to be Kindle Unlimited. But
Okay,
beyond that,
not thought.
I don't know.
Yeah. I know what I did, and it ended up being the publisher doing the audiobook for this, but I did an audiobook for the nonfiction that I wrote. And what I did was I went through and submitted like I think it was like 1,000 words. So basically chapter one kind of, sort of length, and gave that to them and I went through I don't know, 50, 60 different people and looking and reading it, listening to all their samples and that. And then I sent my sample, I think, to two people in the end. And they did like a test read so I could see what it would be like. And then I picked one of those two. So,
That makes sense.
yeah, it worked out well. But
That part sounds fun to me. It's
yeah,
it's more the like how I keep hearing, like different ways that they're paid and like how that's all processed. And like that's the part that's overwhelming my brain a little bit of like, how do I, especially since like for me, I already feel complicated having a personal assistant, which is
yeah,
like the best $80 a month I've ever spent.
yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine.
Yeah,
But
the
yeah,
poor girl with me, I told her I was like, I'm using you for a lot of design stuff for the time being, but when I start my author stuff, like I'm gonna have more stuff to add on, and if we need to like up your price so you can handle this, because like I'm probably gonna have her handle most of my newsletter swaps,
nice.
because that
Yeah,
that is
there's
one of the
a lot of time.
overwhelming things for me.
Uh-huh.
So that will probably be one of her biggest things I have her handle.
Yeah, that's a
But
good idea.
right now she helps me with finding stock photos. That's like her main thing. And oh my gosh, that's been so helpful, especially
Yes.
because like one, I mean, I spend a ton of time looking for that. Like
Uh-huh.
a ton of time.
Ditto.
And then having her like her computer has a different algorithm than mine does. So she pulls up stuff I never see on
Oh, wow.
anything.
I
So,
wouldn't have thought of that.
right? So it's awesome because she sends me stuff I've never seen on deposit photos before. And I have like
Yeah,
hundreds of thousands of things saved on deposit photos.
I know. Same. I never
Yeah, so
thought of
she gets entirely different stuff.
that. I wonder if we should start searching on incognito then and see what we
That's
get
not
if
a
we
bad
put
idea.
blank. Yeah, that might be a yeah. I'll give it a go.
Or, and like even I have noticed even if I log out of deposit photos for a while,
Uh-huh.
mm, sorry, a little off topic. Do you remember me sharing with you Huang Lap? He's the one that did the cover for the anthology that I'm in.
Oh yeah.
And he is literally messaging me right now saying he wants to do a marketing image for me because I'm gonna have like his style is so amazing. I mean, it's like mind-blowing amazing. But for YA, I think it's a little too busy.
Uh-huh.
But like I know that if I saw his art go through on my Facebook or my Amazon, I would be stopping to take a look and see what
Yeah.
it was all about. And the
Yeah.
fact that he's like, sorry, I was excited because I sent him a long thing of like, this isn't the basic world. I don't have a specific idea in my head, but like I have these ideas and I trust your creative process. And yeah, he just messaged me going, I love the cover theme. I have no problem with any of that. We can start October 10th. And I'm like,
Yay.
sorry. I know, like
Awesome. Well done.
considering I just booked two like of my all-time favorite artists today,
Yeah.
which is a crap ton of money, but thank goodness
Yeah.
I'm a cover artist. I
Exactly.
can pay for it.
Exactly. I had Jay do my covers when I was writing, and it was just, yeah, it was
I
a lovely
love Jay's
experience.
work.
So,
Yes. Well, and I'm considering we'll see how her openings go when she opens up. But Bianca, I think I think she just changed her business name to like Moon Press or something like that. But I love her style.
Yeah.
And I think her style would be really good for retellings because I kind of want to do sort of like, have you seen KD's cover for Enchanting the Elven Mage?
Yes, I love that one.
Like, imagine that kind of vibe, but with Bianca's art style. Like, to me, that just clicks really, especially because
Yeah.
I tend to write very snarky and sassy.
Okay.
Like, so like Katie's stuff is a little stiff for my writing. Like that's been my hardest thing with finding someone
Yeah.
for World Walker is finding an art style that I feel kind of vibes with my writing style, but is also marketable. And like that
Yeah.
has been a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah. That other cover
But
you mentioned, a bit too kind of almost sweet.
mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
So,
I
yeah.
feel like Bianca's a little sassy. And like me, I even my own art style, it's funny because I feel like my art is darker than anything I write. So like it would be really hard for me to do my own stuff because
Mm.
I don't feel
It's
like my art
your own
style
stuff
vibes with
anyway.
my writing style.
Yeah.
You're back. Hi. You're so sweet. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was surprised though when I found out that like I guess Logan, I think she said that she's never done any of her own covers. And I was actually kind of like, oh, that's interesting.
I think it's sensible. I tried because the publisher asked me when we were putting it all into one book. They're like, "What do you want on the cover?" And
You
let's
said.
put together some sketches and stuff. And I didn't like any of the sketches, so I thought, well, I'll just throw something together. I've got some ideas in my head of what I want it to look like. It was impossible, absolutely
Yes.
impossible.
I
Yeah.
keep like having these ideas that pop in my head that I'm like, this could work. But then every time I would sit down to try and start a render or start it at all, I just like froze and I just couldn't
No,
do.
you're just too close to it with your own book.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work.
You
So
anyway.
I can
So
see why Logan hasn't done it.
yeah, well, especially since she is not a niched author. I think she has like
Oh,
two names that she writes under. And I
okay.
know that she's done like post-apocalypse, and I think she's
Oh,
done
wow.
thriller, and I think she's done fantasy and a retelling, and like
Oh, okay.
she's
Lots of
done all yeah, she's done all sorts of stuff. I'm like, okay, like that makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I can't imagine. But it was really cool. So one thing I've noticed is, as I've been digging into the marketing like research for publishing my own book, I've
Uh-huh.
been noticing that like anytime I would see ads come across, since I'm like 80% of my groups that I'm in on Facebook now are all book related, and like 80% of what I
Yep.
talk about on there is book related. So all of my ads are book related.
Yep.
And I've noticed that the ads that have like the cover
Uh-huh.
up or something like that, they're getting like no engagement at all. And I'm like, that actually kind of makes sense because you need that emotional attachment that covers can't entirely have, like not to the same degree. And so it's interesting because Logan, she told me, she's like, look, my suggestion, if you love an artist and you want them to do something for you like this, don't have them do your cover. Have them make marketing material for you that you can use for ads that will draw people in. She's like, it will
Uh-huh.
pay itself off so much faster if you do it that way. She's like, so go for a cheaper cover, pay the extra money for the marketing, and then it's a tax write off. And I was like, I like how you think. Okay, I
Clever.
still get the pretty art.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Yeah, I'm happy, yes.
right? Well,
Yeah.
and I was thinking too, something I may do because I think it'd be books. I love books that do this, and I just feel like I don't see it enough. I
Uh-huh.
may have him go ahead and make his stuff to book size standard, and Ingram Spark has the option of doing a print on the like actual hardback and then doing the sleeve. And I love books that have the sleeve as like the cover that you see on Amazon, but then there's like gorgeous art or like a second cover printed on the one below that's different. And I was thinking that would be
I've never
really
seen
cool to do. Oh my gosh, what's her? Embracing Embers. Oh, it's a. I literally bought it, and she only does it for her signed copies. But I
Oh,
literally bought it just because this book is so gorgeous. So she
wow.
had character art made as well, and
Yeah.
like the outside cover is absolutely gorgeous. And then she had a full like wrap art, like super fine art done that told
Oh,
the story. So she had that underneath the sleeve, and then the character art she had
oh,
printed inside the book, like
oh my
throughout it.
goodness. Oh,
And oh my gosh, it was so pretty. And I was like,
wow.
I kind of like the idea of having something unique like that for signed copies. That way it's, because most people pay extra for a signed copy.
Yeah.
And so I was like, that would be kind of fun to do
Yeah.
something like that. So that it's like, this is extra special just for you.
Yeah. That's really cool.
I think it'd be fun. I am a little
One thing that,
intimidated that I think I'm gonna have to buy my ISBN numbers. I was planning on just using the like free ones initially. And
yeah.
I'm like,
If
oh,
you get a
if I'm
pack, they're
thinking
cheaper.
Amazon and ISBN,
Yeah.
I'm
Get a
gonna have to
pack
plop
of
it.
ISBNs. They're cheaper that way.
That's true. I think I heard that you can buy like their packs are like 300 or 400 bucks. So it's not
Yeah.
horrible,
Yeah.
but
I
considering
think
that
we
I'm
bought a
already
pack of 10.
dropping like 1,200 in art.
Exactly. I think we bought a pack of 10 and it was way, it was back like 2014 or so when I did the first non-fiction. And I think it was like 25 each basically at that stage. So they're not desperate and they last, until you've used them up. So if you're planning on doing other books, they'll be well worth it.
Yeah. Well, and especially since you have to have one for like each format that your book is in too. So I mean, once you got paperback, hardback, ebook, and audiobook, that's four of them already right there. You may as well buy
Exactly.
them in a pack and just
Exactly.
save it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you release your stuff, I've been really curious about this with indie authors because I know traditional authors, like I think part of the exciting thing about doing a traditional publisher now, um, is that like you see all the time in movies the like the book release party or like that kind of stuff. Like that's what
Yeah.
you see. And so I'm curious, like, did you ever do anything to like celebrate a book being released? Like even like just went out to dinner to celebrate it or
I don't actually remember going out to dinner, but we don't go out to dinner very often. So we're a bit bad at that. We're a bit sort of stuck at home most of the time.
yeah.
Like we go out for like birthdays, family birthdays, and Christmas. That's about it. That's our restaurants for the year. So
Oh, you're so much better than me.
I don't remember, but I certainly didn't have a big party. But I don't actually remember if we went out to dinner. Are
I
you
was
gonna
just curious.
Are you gonna
Like,
have a party or go out to dinner or something then when yours comes out?
I don't know. It's kind of hard with the COVID stuff going on. Like, I think if I
Uh-huh.
didn't have the COVID stuff going on in my area, that I would definitely do something. Like, for example, I have, even though, again, we haven't done anything in like 2 years because of COVID,
Yeah.
but I have a large group of about 30 women that we all did book club stuff together. And so,
Oh,
like,
cool.
I remember when one of my friends, she got traditionally published and they did a big like party for it. And it was really cool because she invited the entire book club and then we were like literally 50% of the people that were there and
Oh,
everyone
wow.
else was and it was kind of like everyone else I think was just people from the traditional publisher process or people who had like been part of her querying process
Yeah.
and but it was really cool to like go there and experience that and like get to
Yeah.
celebrate it with her. And then we ended up doing a book club for her, like
Oh,
for
wow.
her first book. And I think we did it for each of her books. And
Oh, wow.
she like came in and would answer questions. And it was really fun to like read her face when we would tell her like our guesses of what was going to happen in the next book.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Oh, my
trying to
goodness. I
read her
love
face
that.
and see if she was going to give anything away.
Uh-huh. I love that. That was one thing I had like going on. I put my book out there, and I had a bunch of online friends who were reading it, and I'd be getting like daily, oh, I think so and so is going to do this, and then he didn't. Okay, now he's going to do this. It's just awesome. I'm like, why didn't I think of that while I was writing it? That would have been a good one.
Right? I
Yeah.
was telling my husband, I was like, maybe I should be a really slow writer and like wait to start writing the next one until the first one's out. So that even though I've actually already started writing book two and I have it like 80% of the way plotted, but I was like, I should wait. That way when they ask me that stuff, I can honestly tell them I don't know and like
Yes.
use their ideas.
Yeah,
I have
I got some amazing ideas back, and I was like, oh my goodness, that would have been a really good one, and I've already written it.
right.
Yeah.
I have two cousins that are teenagers, like older teenagers, and it was funny because they were they came we do game nights and stuff like that with them, and they hadn't read my book, but like they've been around me the whole process, so like I just talked to them about it. So they have an idea, and their main thing is I offered to let them be beta readers, and they're like, you know what? I want to wait and get the final product, and like I'm like that's cool. But it was funny because we had this random conversation about one, they were complaining that I did not have centaurs in my book
Oh.
and I didn't have dragons and like
Oh.
all these things. And we ended up like joking around about this idea about creme brulee baking dragons and like dragon shifters. And they're like, one of them's like, you have to call, oh no, they were naming them after each other. So it was like two groups that were like fighting dragon shifters, and one was like the Mikhailites, and the other one was like, they were called the DJ, and then it had some sort of actual meaning for the D and the J. And the funny thing is that conversation turned into like a third of book two for me,
Oh my
and the
goodness.
whole background story, like it inspired my background story of my big bad guy. And I
Oh
was like,
wow.
okay, like that, especially because book one, I don't have the big bad guy obvious, like they're mentioned, but you don't find
Yeah.
out that they're the big bad guy until book two. Like the big bad guy of book one gets like wrapped up and he's done and good. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was just kind of like I love those conversations where you're bouncing stuff off and you're like, oh, this is good. Like, yeah, I'm doing this.
Exactly. Yeah. I was forever having those with my husband. Every time we were driving somewhere, I'm like, right, on to the plotting of the next. What do they do?
Right? Oh, it's funny because
Oh,
I kind of wonder, you know how like everyone talks about how James Patterson has ghostwriters and
yeah.
like he does so much co-authoring stuff. And I've kind of wondered if, I mean, one, he's getting old. Like, I get it. And he's got the money to help other authors publish. So I
Yeah.
do respect that he's helping other authors in that way. But I do kind of wonder if some of his ghostwriting stuff is because he literally just did not have the time to write all of the ideas he had. And he wanted to get his
Right.
hands on them so much that he's like, I've got the money, I might as well. Like, I see nothing wrong with that if you're like actually
Yeah.
going back through it and, you know,
Yeah. I would have
like
thought
if he,
he's got a brand. I mean, it's his name, but it's a
yeah,
brand, and people will pick up a James Patterson book because they know they like them. So why not have
uh-huh,
more of them?
right. And he has a standard of quality that you don't that like not even all regular publishers have. Like he's basically just become his own publisher, and
Yeah.
that's why we have so many James Patterson by such and such author stuff coming out right now. Is he's become a publisher, and it's interesting to me how many
Yeah.
people don't get that. Like that
Yeah.
it's not that like he's most of his stuff he's not claiming he wrote. Most of
Yeah.
it is him just saying, I'm helping this author publish their stuff and I give it my stamp of approval.
Yeah.
Like,
It's great. You know.
yeah, if I had the money, I mean, why not get a
Yeah.
chunk of it when you know how to publish, you know how to market? Like,
Exactly.
why not help
And you've
authors
got
with
the
that and
name.
get a chunk of that?
You
Yeah.
know. Feel like J.K. Rowling doing it and just sort of going, okay, it's another J.K. Rowling book, and there's like 100 different authors all under under that putting out
Yeah.
fantasy books. I mean, it'd be amazing.
Even though I was cracking up when I went to Barnes and Noble and saw the Bill Clinton one, I was like, hold up. Like James Patterson, you just like put your stamp of approval with a James Patterson by such and such author. for a Bill Clinton biography. Like,
Goodness, that's a bit. Oh, you
yeah,
think
I
he'd
was
stick in
like,
the
that's
same
a little
genre?
awkward,
Yeah.
right? It was a little weird, but he's basically his own publisher house now. I'm totally
Great.
cool with that. Like,
Yeah.
honestly, if I did decide to go trad and like I had the option with him, like he's actually probably one of the only ways I would consider going trad, to be totally honest with you. Just
Yeah.
because I feel like he has more presence and clout than even the big, well, four now, since one of them bought out another one.
Yeah.
Which ironically, my friend that I was saying, talking about how I went to her like book release party thing,
Yeah.
and in that sale, she ended up getting the rights to her book covers back, to her books back. And
Ooh.
so she's like trying to decide what she's going to do with them while she's working on other stuff.
Yeah.
And so I've been sending her like resources of like, this is what you should look at for indie. Like, you've never had to market your own stuff. You've never had to do any of
Yeah.
this. Like, this will help you out so much. And she's freaking out a bit because the artists that did her covers, which they're kind of, to me, they're not, they're not on brand, especially not current enough on brand for it to easily sell itself.
Yeah.
But sorry, she, yeah, she discovered the artist because she needs a cover for the next book. And she realized her artist is up like $800 per cover at this point. And
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I mean, you've been doing this for for 4 or 5 years. So a cover artist that's been working that long, that's done well, they're
Yeah.
going to be around that.
Yeah. They are.
There's a reason you and I know so many that are like 700 to,
To a
oh, well, I mean,
thousand to 2,000. Yeah.
what was his name that was telling us that he was even from like he charged less for indie, and his trad ones he's been paid up to like 5 and 6 thousand from traditional publishers. I
Yeah.
can't
Is
remember
it
his
Kurt?
name.
Kurt?
Yes, and
Yeah.
he's one of the few that did never niche down. That like he
Yeah.
never, all of
Yeah.
his stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've niched down for the indie stuff, but for the trad stuff, it's, I've done all sorts of genres.
I'm
I've now done
I'm
what,
kind of
as
the
a
same
YA?
way.
Yeah.
And there's certain like, even if so, I will say my portfolio is mostly like a couple specific genres. But
Yeah.
every once in a while, I will get a request for something that I get really like. Tonight, I got a request for a cover that I'm like, I'm really tempted, even though it's not one of my normal genres. It sounds like a lot of fun, and I know I can nail it. Like,
Yeah.
I get this. I can do this.
Yeah.
My one, okay, I would say my two hard no's is I do not do steamy in any way, and I don't do like thriller horror kind
Yeah.
of stuff. And then
That's
obviously I would turn down anything that was offensive or insensitive, and I like that kind of thing. Like, I did have one that I turned down that I asked if I could read part of their books. They couldn't clarify well enough what they meant, and as I was reading, I was like, oh, this is like really racist. Like,
oh,
I do not want my name attached to this in any way. Like, I am so sorry, but
yeah.
no.
I don't read the books, especially not before. I mean, some of them I might read afterwards if I, like the idea, but I don't read the books before. So yeah, I never know
I
what's
don't
going into
normally,
them content-wise.
I don't normally, but again, if an author's having a really hard time, if I feel like I'm not getting enough from what they need, because they just don't know how to put it, because
Yeah.
I normally have to help to really make a successful cover. I really have to be able to get down to not just the genre and not just the subgenre. Like, I have to figure out who their target audience is so I can understand their comparable. Because like the customs that I showed you that I just finished, it was the man and the woman on two different ones.
Yeah.
Her, when she came to me, she literally just said, I write YA high fantasy. And I'm like, okay. And I went and looked at her previous stuff, and I'm like, her covers don't necessarily look like that. And I asked if I could read just a scene from the book, because she told me she'd had a couple scenes, and when I read it, I was like, oh, and this is not steamy at all, right? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, okay, so by any chance, do you feel like your comparable authors are like Sylvia Mercedes and Frost K and KCL Bond and that kind of stuff. She's like, yeah, how did you know? And I'm like, see, that's the information I need. I need to know that level because, for example, a cover for someone who's going to draw the same audience as J.K. Rowling or as James Patterson versus Sylvia Mercedes and Frost K, they're completely different covers, completely different compositions. Like, even
Yeah.
though they're all technically
Fantasy.
YA high epic fantasy,
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
I need more than that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
That
Whereas
author
the
was,
a little narrower, should I say? I guess it's like
yeah,
urban fantasy is urban fantasy is. I mean, there's the shifters and the vampires, and they've each got their own like bits, but it's still urban fantasy. You can tell it's urban fantasy.
uh-huh,
So
yeah. Well, and
yeah,
that's been a kind of an interesting thing too. Like, for example, high fantasy has really been starting to have bigger divides in it. Like epic fantasy has to a degree, because honestly, epic fantasy kind of pulls in part of lit RPG and sword and sorcery and some high fantasy stuff. But
yeah,
high fantasy's been really interesting to watch as it's been breaking up into a lot wider range of target audience and subgenres. Like,
cool.
especially if the retelling stuff has exploded. And like a
Yeah,
cover for that. Do you know who Sarah Oliver is?
no,
So she does a lot more vector type stuff, but it's a specific style that I considered actually for World Walker. And then when I dug into it, I was like, oh, almost all of these are actually retellings, like, but dark retellings. But if it's like a romantic retelling, then you want a cover like Enchanting the Elven Mage. And like high fantasy has been breaking down into so many interesting subgenres. And like it's even been
cool.
starting to break down into like Fae specific and shifter specific and a
Wow.
lot of that kind of thing. It's been interesting as I've been digging into it. And of course, my book doesn't like even qualify for high fantasy, but it helps for covers. For
Yes.
me, covers.
Yes. I guess I've been sort of like delving into like the vampire and the urban fantasy and stuff more than most else actually at the moment. So I haven't seen
It's
that in
all good.
high.
Well, and honestly, I think partially because of book length, like most paranormal and urban fantasy, most of those that I've read have been between like 50,000 words and 70,000 words. But,
Yeah.
high and epic fantasy, like, are expected to be between 70 and 120,000 words. And so
Yep.
authors are, for the most part, there's a lot more covers being needed and sold for urban and paranormal just because
Yeah.
they're
They
they're being
want the
written
book.
faster.
Yeah.
Plus,
Exactly.
they're like the hot genre right now, especially for steamy. And like reverse harem in high fantasy is having like a huge boom right now. I mean, reverse harem in general is, but
Yeah.
I know you and I've talked about that. We're looking at covers and we're going, okay, what are the like key things in this that are like the secret subliminal things saying this is reverse harem, even though it does not look like reverse harem.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot to it, isn't there? I did one cover really early on that was harem, and it was like my, I don't know, third or fourth cover I'd ever done. So there was a heck of a lot I still didn't know at that stage. And
Yeah.
the author was like, "This is what I want." So I just said, "Okay," and produced it because he told me it was an urban fantasy. So I produced an urban fantasy shifter, and the amount of people that he had contacting him saying, "Is this a reverse harem?" Oh no. He's like, "No, it's
Oh,
harem." And of course, he had a ton of like people going, "I thought it was a reverse harem." So we eventually changed the cover and made
oh.
it really harem book, not what he told me, which was urban fantasy.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah,
I mean, I feel like that's a big part of a cover artist's job is like, especially for authors that don't know, like it helps when an author comes to me and knows what categories they're going to put their book in.
Yeah, I always
because
ask the categories. But yeah,
yeah,
when you're way
that's
back
the
at the beginning, you
easiest
don't
way
know
for
that.
me to know. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I would say only I would less than half of my authors that come to me know those before they come to me. Like
Oh wow.
especially if they're new and they've never put out another book before. Like normally I go through that
Yeah.
process with them of, and then again, it's one of those things that I know and I've learned, but I have no clue. Like I can't do it for my own stuff.
Right. Yeah, I've
There's
had. I think every single person has known what categories they're going into for mine.
You're getting a whole different crowd than I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or like the ones I'm sending your way. Some of them I've sent your way because I already went through that process with them, and I'm like, you know what? I know someone who will do this better than me. Like I like you, and I would not be referring you to her if I did not think that she could literally make a better cover for this than me. I've
Yeah.
done a few, and I always, usually I offer. I'm like, I will still do it if you really want to work with me. I don't mind, but I've
Yeah.
done a few of those referrals from, I know for you and for a couple other people, but I'm like, this style with what you're showing me, they would be amazing. Like their cover would be so much better than mine.
Well, thank you for that. So yeah.
You've got skills. You've got more than you realize. Yeah. Especially looking at the stuff from like I'm trying to remember when I first met you. Like I first remember seeing your stuff before I actually met you. So I think the first stuff I really remember seeing from you was like July or August of last year.
Yeah.
And that was the first stuff I remember. I don't think I actually met you though until November, because I don't think it was until after I joined Illustrious.
Okay. I don't remember. I thought
Yeah.
we were chatting before Illustrious, but I don't remember. Maybe not.
It's hard for me to remember.
Yeah.
I just remember those first few months, I felt like so alone because I didn't
Uh-huh.
know how to break into the network of
Yeah.
book cover designers, and like the
Yeah.
author world could help me find the marketplaces, and that was such a huge help. But trying to find where the cover designers were so I could learn and I could find resources,
Yeah.
that was a
I actually
struggle.
found Jeff before when I was an author, and I was like watching him doing paintovers and stuff. So I knew him, and so he actually messaged me about Illustrious starting, and I started. I think I waited about a month, and I should have just started right at the beginning, but I didn't. Was
Yeah.
stupid, and so I waited a month, and so I started. I think I started on week 6, week 7, something like that. But until then, I'd been like totally lost. I'd reached the point that I actually messaged Jay and said, I'm wanting to get into this. Do you have any feedback? I need help. I asked him if he'd mentor me, and he said he didn't know enough to mentor me, so he didn't want to do that, which was really sweet. But he gave me a load of feedback on a couple of covers and helped me improve them. And
Oh,
then
that's
I found
awesome.
Ryan in the gallery, and he helped me again. And it kind of like snowballed until Jeff messaged me. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to do that. So yeah.
I have this like internal voice in my head that when I want to send something to somebody to get critique, that like I'm bothering them, even though I know that's not necessarily the case. And so that was actually a big part of why I knew that I didn't really have the time to be an admin for book cover events. But I was like, it is literally the only place that even now, that I see that's giving actual actionable feedback to book cover designers. Like even the
Yeah.
critique groups, I'm not seeing that. And I
No.
think it helps too that we have an expectation, and we make it clear with any designers that want to sell their stuff in our groups, because we are having between 70 and 80% of our covers in almost every sale selling, which no other marketplace is having that
Wow.
right
Wow.
now.
That's really cool.
Yeah, we've had a couple that like we got overwhelmed and just forgot to actually like push like normal. But like for example, that author appreciation one, I think we only had 4 or 5 covers from that whole sale not sell. There was
Wow.
36 designers, and
Wow.
to only have that many not sell, and when in a chunk of time where most
Yeah.
pre-mades are not selling, like.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah, that was why I agreed to do it, because I I want to help people get it. And I could totally see me like long term doing more of that kind of stuff, especially doing more. I feel like I'm too inexperienced right now, even though I'm sure I'm not. But I could see me doing the kind of stuff that like Logan offers with
Yeah,
giving
I see
critique
you
and
doing that.
feedback and like more one-on-one stuff.
Yeah.
Like I
I think
think I'd
there's
be
a
really good at
line between like, inexperienced as in can't produce it yourself, but you can still see it and therefore you can still give feedback. So,
and that's why it's been so hard for me. Like, I
yeah,
think that's where a lot of my imposter syndrome has been hitting me. It's because I can see what I need to do to make my stuff better, but
yeah,
I just don't
which is
have the
great.
actual physical ability yet.
And it'll come,
Yeah,
that's hours with a pen,
right.
even virtual pen, whatever. But, it's just hours of doing it over and over and over. And you've got a, ton of other stuff to do at the moment. So
You know,
the
it's
fact that you can
funny.
see it means you can tell other people about it.
Yeah, and I use it all the time, and I have a ton of like resources that I send people. That was one of my biggest things. And I know most of the other admins don't do it, but
Yeah.
I try to do as much of the critiquing as I can because I'm the main one that's like, ooh, I know a good resource for blah blah blah. Let's send that to that designer. And I feel like our newer designers, like the group that's coming up right now, I feel like they have been learning way faster than we did.
They
And I think a
have.
big part of it is because we're sending them those links of this is what you need to do to level up. And
Yeah.
like there's a couple of them that are not too far from like passing me on skill level right now
Yeah.
because they've only been doing it for like 6 months.
I know. I
But
know. They really have gone up fast.
yeah, I think and we've also referred a lot of them over to Illustrious to help
Yeah.
with some of
I,
that.
yeah. I know I shot up with Illustrious. I think we all did.
Yeah.
So,
That was definitely a big game changing moment for me because I had
yeah.
never thought about like I understood the composition stuff subconsciously,
Yeah.
but
Did
like figuring out one typography. Typography is by far you're amazing. It's not even fair that you are naturally good at
it.
typography.
It is. It's just natural. I don't know what it is. I just sort of feel it. But it's the other
Oh,
stuff for me, like lighting. So I used to like kick my butt. Now I've kind of like got it down to like, okay, lights here, it shines on this, and you kind of like work through it. But it wasn't natural. Definitely not
I
natural.
had never even thought of lighting beforehand.
Yeah.
And now that I look at some of my old stuff, especially when I
I know.
first I'm like, oh man, like her head is a different, like the opposite lighting from her body. And
Uh-huh.
like, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some of it was really bad.
Uh-huh. Oh,
Oh
dear.
man. Of course, I'm not
Yeah.
gonna lie. Some of mine that I look at even from a couple of months ago, I'm like, what was I thinking there? Like, why did I think that was really the way to go? I will say though, for the last everything that I've made since, and actually even some of my very first stuff that I made has done really well for the author. So it's not like I came into it so completely clueless that I at
Oh,
least
yeah.
had a basic idea of what I liked and like where I wanted to go.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I came in just doing lit RPG, and I looked yesterday. I think it was. I've still got 10 out of the top 100 in one of the categories for the lit
that
RPG
does
stuff.
not surprise me
So
because
yeah, they're
it's
still just going. They're selling.
yeah.
So it's
Well, and
good.
especially considering too that you for lit RPG, you were definitely an affordable option for it too, because so
Mhm.
much of it is like full illustration with a
Yeah,
ton of detail. And
yeah.
because of
Or
how
the
you
likes of
work,
Amalia, who are like what, grand and a half or something. I don't know, but you know,
yeah, I think he's
quite
around that,
expensive if you're a brand new author.
right? I know, like I said, that was part of why Logan was like, it's really a bad idea to spend more than like 150 on a cover for your first book. And I'm like, Logan, you don't understand. Cover designers aren't selling their stuff for that anymore.
No,
Like even the new ones,
no, they're not.
they're not selling it for that. And epic fantasy people do not make pre-mades for, and if they do, they're like it's from when they first started out before they
Yeah,
realized that epic fantasy pre-mades don't sell.
yeah, yeah.
Like
Well, even with that,
That
I
was
mean, I
kind of,
spent 225, I think, was my first cover on, J from Jay, because it was like, a couple of years before he really got known, because I had him and I booked him and I had the cover made within a matter of weeks. So yeah, it was
yeah.
a couple of years before he got really known. But yeah, it was only 225 at that stage. So there's just, you wouldn't find something for 150 now that was, you know, you want. I
Right.
wouldn't have
Well,
thought.
I know part of what I was telling her is I was like, I started at 100. Like
Wow.
for like everything was I started at 100, and that was because book cover gallery, that was the minimum price. And
Yeah.
so I was like, you know what? I That's going to be my goal. I'm going to start at $100, and I'm just
Yeah.
going to have everything before that. And I did have to I did some of my first ones make marked down like to $30 before they sold, and then I actually retired a bunch of those first ones. But I mean, that was
Yeah.
also back in the day where my skill level was low quality photo manipulation,
Yeah.
and that stuff literally, it would take me like 3 hours to make a cover. Now, because I
Wow. I've
do
never done one that
so
quick.
much painting and rendering, like
Yeah.
it takes me like a week.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is one thing too, when I hear a lot of authors that and again, with me being in the author community as an author, like I totally get it. But I do hear a lot of, I want fast turnaround, like I need it, like I want it to be done within like 2 or 3 days. And a lot of designers brag about that, which is awesome. But not all genres are able to get away with that because, like, for example,
Mm.
high
Yeah.
and epic
I need it
fantasy,
fully illustrated.
they
You
sell
have.
best with more illustrated stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially at this point where, other than the faces, because I'm still working on that, like everything else is being rendered and painted by me at this point.
Yeah.
So it takes me so much longer. And part of that is just my computer having to sit there and render individual items that I want before
Yeah.
I paint it.
Yeah. Yeah. I've started doing them overnight. So I set up all my renders before I go to bed, and then I have something called Man Friday's render queue. I think it's called something like that. Man Friday's something, anyways. Look it up, and you can
Yeah.
set them all going, and it will log. It will do them all, and then turn your computer off. Or overnight. So you wake up in the morning, computer's off, everything, and yeah, it's great.
I need to do that because that would, especially when I only have, because I work in the middle of the night, I only have 15 to 20 hours a week to work on this.
Yeah.
And that includes my writing time as well.
Yeah.
So, like,
Yeah.
I get, even though I will say, so for example, my short story that's going into the anthology, um, all of it was written while my toddler was awake, and that was so hard, but I knew I was on a time crunch. Oh my goodness, trying to write with a 2-year-old climbing on you, especially like I don't write steamy, but it's clearly a romance. And there's like some of that sassy, flirty interaction. And I'm writing that when my 2-year-old's climbing on me. And I'm like, no, like Coco Melon, help me here.
Well, at least you can't read.
Oh, no, thank goodness. Yeah. But she's book obsessed. Like all of my reading has to be done as ebooks because she steals all of my books. My bookshelves with my books are in my hallway, and I put drawers on the bottom with all of my books up top. So I don't have closet. I live in a 2-story shop that we've been converting into a house.
Oh
And so
wow.
I don't have closets or storage or like,
Oh
I mean, my
my goodness.
bathroom is the space under my stairs. Like
Yeah.
literally it is my space under the stairs. And so it was kind of cracking me up because she discovered she can open all of the drawers and make them into steps to pull all of my books off of those top shelves. And I'm so glad those shelves are screwed to the wall because
Uh-huh.
there's been so many times that like I go to get dressed for 2 minutes and I come back and every single book is on the floor and she's up top. She's like, woohoo!
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, she loves books. She loves drawing too. Like
Oh, that's
she's,
cool.
it's been cute. Like
Yeah.
my little, I think she's lucky too because I know that growing up, I was kind of, my family always knew I was really artistic and creative, but because of like in the 90s and stuff, like indie publishing wasn't a thing. And
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't for me
so
either.
like what we're doing now wasn't really even a career for us for the most part.
No.
Like
Yeah. I wasn't
that's
even
one thing I've been
artistic.
having to remind. Yeah, that's one thing I've been having to like explain to some of my family members that are just graduating high school. So like I need to have my whole life planned. And I'm like, but what if you're like me and the career you're supposed to be doing doesn't even exist right now?
Exactly.
Like
Exactly. Yeah.
you never know.
No, you don't never know.
Like if
Yeah.
I had committed to a career, would I be as happy as I am right now?
Yeah.
Probably not. And
Yeah.
honestly, this has a lot better income potential long term than just about anything I could have gone to college for, especially any of the degrees I was in school for.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know. I had better income potential in probably my second career, but first career I was in IT because that's what I did at college, and then the
see, I'm a
second
junior for
degree
that.
sorry.
I'm a junior for IT right now.
Okay.
But think about how much KD's charging and the
I know.
fact that she does 12 covers a month at that price.
Is this 12,000 a month? Yeah, I was probably earning considerably
So
more
a
than
year,
that.
like,
Yeah. I mean, I
and
was a
then when you
contractor.
consider too,
So
she has full wraps that she charges several hundred,
true.
plus all of like the extras.
Yeah.
Like I'd be very surprised if she's not coming out of most, and that's for single character, like no extra stuff. And she's been
Yeah.
doing a lot of dual things, so I'd be surprised if at least half of them are not coming out to be at least 1,500 per cover.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know where I was. I mean, I was living in London, so the
Oh,
time was the most expensive place on the planet, and I charged accordingly. I worked
yeah.
here and there 3 months. I was a contractor, so I kind of came in, did
That
my stuff, left.
helps.
Yeah, it was a really, really good career. And then I decided to go back to college and became a chiropractor. Started my own practice, and I was going for about a year and a half before we left and came to the States. So I was starting to specialize. I was halfway through my pediatric masters and stuff. And
Oh,
there's a lot of chiropractors, at least in England anyway, who earn a lot of money.
yeah.
And I was starting to get the practice going with sort of the mums and the kids and things, and then we came here. So I think there was a couple of like careers along the way that I probably could have earned a lot for, but yeah, didn't stick with them. So
Yeah, I will say, I think one thing I like about this is that it's not, sorry, random messages keep popping up. Um, one thing that I really like is that it's constantly changing. And I have like the opportunity to keep changing. Every job I've ever done and like every career thing I've ever done, I've done really good at, partially because of my ADHD, because I like hyper focus and I
yeah,
become really good at that very fast, but then I burn out really fast and
yeah,
I get bored of it, especially if it's something that isn't developing as quickly as I am.
yeah.
And so that's one thing
That's
that I
why I
really like about,
contracted.
yeah,
And, yeah, but yeah, it's
that's
great about book cover designing because you get a different project every day.
right. Well, and like there's no limit to the level of skill that you can get. Plus, the market is constantly changing. So, like the stuff that we're making now, 10 years from now, is not going to be where the market's at. So, like, we're going to be making different types of stuff by that point in time.
Yeah,
There's obviously going to be some similarities and like skills are going to transfer over, but
yeah,
I like
that's
that
great.
it's always evolving, it's always changing.
I know, I love that about it as well. And that was another thing as well. When I was like writing, it was like you've got your one story until you finished, and for me it was like 3 months for a
Yeah.
book. Whereas this one I can do a different story every day.
Yes. Yeah.
So
That was actually
that
one of the reasons I was telling my husband that I can never be like a full-time writer where like that is our main income source. Cause I'm like, I I have a hard time sticking with just one story and writing it every single day. Like I'm not patient with it. Don't get me wrong, if I built up to where I was an author that I could write 10, 15,000 words in a day, yeah, I would
Yeah,
just like reserve a week and like hyper focus and bust it out. But I am not. I am that writer that like after 1,000 words, my brain is fried. Like I
yeah.
can't.
I never
Maybe
made more than
someday.
8,000 a day.
Yeah. I was excited when I got 1,500 the other day. I was like, that's good.
Yeah,
Like that was two rough draft scenes for me. I'm okay with that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Whereas I didn't have a 2-year-old and, another career at the same time. So I was just sort of sitting down and just writing all day, and I'd get 8,000. And then you look on like sort of these author groups and they've got like a running total of the monthly word count, and some of them were at 127,000 in the month. I'm like,
Yeah.
how?
Yeah. Like I can see how people could be writing, 4 or 5 books a year and putting them out.
Yeah,
Like I totally get it. But I had a couple people suggest to me that for my series before I released it to do to like write it all first and do quick release. And I was like, but
yeah,
then the readers are going to expect that. And
uh-huh.
I'm not going to be that writer. Like,
Yeah,
we'll see when my daughter starts school in a few years if I decide to put more time and energy into my writing or more time and energy into my cover design. Like,
exactly. Or a bit in
I
both.
don't know what I'm doing. Yeah, which is probably the route it's going to go. We'll see how I'm working on the habit of the writing right now. That's my biggest, like, I'm working on becoming more consistent because it
Yeah,
is easier to write if I haven't completely disengaged from the story yet.
yeah,
So, but I've also found the biggest thing that's made the, like, literally the biggest difference for me to be able to to keep writing and stop myself from getting stuck in lulls is I can't let myself stop if I don't know what's going to happen next. So like even if I don't know what's going to happen after the thing I'm currently working on, I will stop like a few paragraphs early because if I can write those few paragraphs more often than not, it kind of like segues mentally and gets those juices going and I can power right through that and it'll like come to me. But if I'm
no.
sitting there staring at a blank page, not knowing what I'm going to do, nothing happens.
Wow. Well, that's a good way to know, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Plus,
had it
then I'm itching
hyper
to finish that.
planned. I knew what was going to happen in each, not quite each paragraph, but definitely each chapter and stuff. And yeah. Then, of course, the
I,
characters go, no, I'm not going that way. I'm going that way.
yes. So I learned that was something about a third of the way through World Walker. So the first third, it was literally just like whatever came to me, I wrote. And that was why the first third of it took me 4 years to write. And
Yeah.
then I was like, okay, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to plan this out because that was when I figured out that if I knew what I was going to write next, I could keep going. And so I was like, okay, if I plan out the basic, so now I write in Google Docs so I can write on my phone, but I have a second Google Doc like thing that always
Yeah.
has all of my characters and like basic stuff about them. And then
Mm-hmm.
I'll have like main points that I want to maybe have happen in the books. And I'll even write down like for the next like main plot things from book one that need to go in book two. And then I also have book three, and I'm like, okay, these are main things for book three that would be a good idea to foreshadow a little bit in book two. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but then I started doing a massive, like several pages long, I can't remember what they're called, like a graph, like an Excel looking graph on like as
Yeah.
part of that same document. And I literally break it down like scene by scene. And there's big blank spots that just has like maybe this kind of vibe here. But what I can think of, I literally like will break it down scene by scene. And I have like I'm going over. And so like the next one over will say is typically for like, what is the point of this scene in the book? Like, what do I need to get done in this? Like, how is it moving the story forward?
Yeah.
And then the next one is how is this interact? Like, how is this moving character development forward? So like that way I can be consciously thinking about those as I'm writing it. But there's always big chunks that are blank that I'm like, I need about this. And then, of course, like you said, the characters decide they're going in another direction. So, book one was funny to go back on, especially since I did send, I had a chunk, and I always have the same problem. The like, the spot around three-quarters of the way through the book where you know where you're going, but you need not necessarily filler, but you need something there, and I couldn't figure it out. And so I sent my book to a developmental editor along with that massive graph. And she was so funny. She's like, "You left out entire scenes." And I'm like, "But did you notice how my characters went off script and made some of their own that are not on this?" Like, that's why they did that during that scene instead. They decided not to go to that party. So
Yep.
she
Oh,
was
good.
awesome though. And it's funny, I don't even count her as like one of my actual editors because she didn't do anything in it. What she did instead is I think she was like $100 and I sent her my book and I sent her that stuff. And
Yeah.
I literally was like, I need help figuring out what to do here. Like
Oh,
any
that's really
ideas you have. And it was cool because we did a Zoom after that was like an hour long after she
nice.
went through it. And yeah, she sent me like a sheet with a bunch of written down ideas and we just bounced stuff off of each other. And it was so nice, especially because she is an editor, she is a writer. And so she was able to give me very smart feedback. It wasn't just like, what would be really funny? Because I was worried about that.
Yeah. Oh, that's really
Yeah.
cool. That I could have used because that was what my problem was. Is like I just don't come up with ideas, and I'm sitting there
Yeah.
going, well, yeah, well, I know what I want them to do, and obviously, since I was writing lit RPG, I had to track all their stats and all their equipment and
Yeah.
all the contents of their inventory, just like any game, and stuff. So I had to track all of that, and then what monsters gave what XP, and therefore when I met them again, were they going to give the same XP, or because she'd leveled up, were they going to level up?
Uh-huh.
And so I had like this monumental Google sheet with like everything that they'd done and where her respawn point was at any one time, what areas she'd uncovered, what messages she'd got. It was just
Uh,
massive.
I
And
bet.
trying to work out character plot as well in the midst of all of that. And it's like, well, I know I've got to get her to there, but to get to there, she has to be level 25. So I better go farm some stuff. And oh my goodness.
Yeah. That's a
Yeah,
lot.
it
That is
is
a
really
lot. I don't think I could ever write lit RPG because of
it's
that. And
different.
it's funny because I have a couple friends that are like right. We send each other small snippets. We don't send each other like entire chunks.
Yeah,
But one of them he writes thriller as well as like right now he's writing this like epic fantasy that's kind of a comedy, but it's also like not really epic fantasy. It's so off the wall and like not even there's no niche. Like there is no niche for this
yeah,
book, but I desperately need to read it. I mean, to give you an idea, I think the title of it is called Party of Four. And
okay,
like the cover that he had made is literally like these four different species surrounded by water, I think, trying to climb up this hill. And like it's so humorous and like awkward and weird and hilarious. And it was cool too because the artist, Alex, so he's a illustrator, he's not a regular cover designer. And he's on
yeah,
Discord, and it was really cool because anytime he worked on it,
yeah.
he live streamed it on Discord
Oh, cool.
because this author was okay with that. So even
Yeah.
now, he streams at 3 a.m.
Oh
So
my goodness.
I like hop on there to watch, but it was cool for him to get to watch like the actual process as it happened.
Yeah,
Like that
I
was cool.
love
I
doing
think I
that.
would,
I try and do that, like especially with pre-mades and stuff. But if
yeah.
if I'm doing a custom and an author's like okay with it, I love doing that because you get to watch it and say, well,
Mm-hmm.
initially this is what I was liking, or oh, I love that. Can we do more of that? Yeah, I love doing that.
My hard thing is just the time because I
Yeah,
work through the middle of the night. Like
exactly.
there's so many authors that I've worked with that I'm like, I think it would have been so much easier if we could have even done like a couple Zoom chats where I could show them and like we could walk through it. But when we were never awake at the same time,
No, no.
like
I have
that's
a
not an
client
option.
in career, and it's just I'm never awake at the same time as him. I send him this and I say, this is as far as I've got. I'm not willing to do any more until I get some feedback from you. And then I wake up the next
Uh-huh.
morning and there's all the feedback, and then I do a bit more. And yeah, but it does. It takes a lot longer because you have to,
Yeah.
there's only so much. You don't want to like paint the hair and then have him say, well, actually, no, I don't like the color, you know,
Yeah.
whatever. So yeah,
I've actually, because it does slow down the process, I've actually been considering. So Mariah, she books all of hers for the month and has them all start at the very beginning of the month so that while she's waiting on feedback, she can work on other stuff. And then she takes the last week of the month off to recharge slash do all of her paperwork stuff. And I
yes,
was like, I actually don't hate that idea
yeah,
because, like, right now I do one a week, which is fine. But I do wonder if, because of how I have to work, if maybe that would be better for my process, or if my
yeah.
ADHD would glitch because I felt like there was too much on this plate. So I'm kind of considering maybe February booking that
How about
way
doing
and
half half?
seeing, yeah.
Start
Because I mean,
two
how nice would
together and
it
then two
be?
later. You know?
That's not a bad idea. Well, and I have thought too, like it would be kind of nice too, like if you had a month of easy customs to get a couple extra days off at the end of the month, like that would be amazing.
Yeah, yeah,
Especially after having booked the entire month of August off and having worked the entire thing instead to get caught up.
yeah,
Yeah. Fortunately, I like my clients, so I
yeah,
didn't mind.
exactly.
But I definitely was like, I desperately need sleep, please.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I'm lucky I worked through the day, and other than this one client, all of mine are awake at the same time I'm awake.
That helps. I will say, I do wonder if that's part of why I draw so many international authors
Yeah,
because
you're
they're
awake.
not, yeah, they're just on a different schedule. And
Yeah,
but I feel like we've got a huge group of cover designers that are from the Philippines that have
yeah,
been coming up right now. And so that's been, I don't want to say they're like competition, but I mean, I'm not a competitive person in any way. But like I feel like that's also really good for them for international authors to have as an option of someone that's closer to their time zone. 'Cause the US is so weird. And my brain hadn't, when I was younger, my brain did not understand just how big the US was compared to everyone else. Like you see it on the globe, but
yeah,
it didn't even dawn on me when I was like even a teenager that other countries did not have multiple time zones in them.
yeah,
Like we have states with multiple time zones in it. Like
yeah.
I had never, that just hadn't dawned on me.
No, well, I didn't know much about the States. I mean, I came here the first time when I was 25, I think, for a holiday. Maybe not 25, maybe 24, but around that area, anyways. So that was the first time I'd ever been here, you know. But I've been used to like hopping country to country, so it's a bit kind of the same of hopping state to state.
Yeah. Especially since the US has such big chunks that are so completely different from the rest. I mean,
Yeah,
I lived in Idaho and Oregon for most of my life. Like all of my growing up years, that's where I lived. And then I now live in North Carolina, which is like completely different culture, completely different like ecosystem. I mean, it's
yeah,
yeah. And it's kind of funny because I can even see a lot of times the stuff that I get requested for covers and for work is different between the different like there's some subconscious things that I notice them ask for that I'm like, huh, it's interesting that I get more of those requests from that area of the US versus like other areas. And there are things that I never would have thought of, but
yeah. I've not noticed that to say, but yeah,
yeah,
it's
they're just
interesting.
small things. But like like for example, certain areas tend to ask me for like cooler colors in my work.
Okay.
and certain ones ask me for warmer areas, and they actually tend to correlate really well with like the like weather kind of patterns for where they live. And it's been really interesting. I mean, it's not like 100%, but it's something that I've noticed that I'm like, huh, there's an
Yeah.
awful lot of you from Minnesota and Idaho that are asking for like blues and greens and grays and that kind of stuff. But then people in like Arizona and California are asking me for reds and oranges, and
Yeah.
like that's
Wow. That's
interesting.
interesting. I'll have to have a look out. I'm not sure I know which state most of my authors are in, though. So that's sort of probably why I've not seen it.
I take a peek because I have them put their address on the contracts, so it's like right next to their signature.
Got
So when I do a quick peek at that, it makes me think of it.
yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh,
Maybe it's just my like weird brain watching patterns or something. I don't know. But
it's an interesting pattern. I mean, it kind of makes sense when you think about it. So,
right? Like they're obviously attracted to living to in that area. So
exactly. Yeah. Whereas,
yeah.
yeah, when I grew up, everything was super brightly coloured.
And what's funny because my mom and I are total opposites with that. 'Cause my mom is very like she needs reds and oranges and yellows or she
Yeah.
gets depressed. And
Oh, okay.
I'm the opposite. I have to have blues and grays and whites and lots of like visually heavy versus visually open stuff, like combined, or I get really bad anxiety. Like I tried to decorate with red for a while for my husband because he loves red, and I was so mean, and I did not mean to, but like I just couldn't chill out.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I like, for decorating, I like whites.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I don't know. My mum, I mean, they live in a wooden house because they're in Switzerland, they're in a chalet, so it's all wood, but it's all
Oh.
like pale wood. So,
Yeah.
like pine and stuff. So she accents it with a lot of oranges and that kind of stuff. And she likes orange and green, whereas I don't.
Isn't it funny how that works?
It is. It is. I guess my sister's similar because she lives in England and she's got, I mean, it's a typical English house. It's fairly kind of heavy and old and a lot of old wood and stuff like this. Whereas, yeah, I grew up and, well, I grew up in Hong Kong, so it was very kind of modern, like super modern.
Yeah.
That's what I kind of now gravitate towards, you know. So, yeah.
I can see that. And actually that kind of makes sense with your art style too, actually. Because you're very crisp in like your shapes.
Okay.
You're drawn to very crisp shapes in your work. So that makes a lot of sense.
Huh.
That totally does.
That's really cool.
Right? Look at that.
Yeah.
That's
I know
kind
I've
of
always
funny.
liked Asian art, but I haven't really got a chance to do any. So,
Yeah. It's one of those ones that like I did do some when I first started, and then the couple of authors that I worked with, they're like, I love working with you, but I want to support other like cover designers of Asian descent and have them do it. And I'm like, you know what? I get it. Like that
yeah.
does not bother me at all. Like still send me your stuff because I'm the girl that, oh my gosh, it has been probably 6 months since I've watched anything in English. So
Wow.
like
What do you watch it in?
like I watch a lot of anime and a lot of Korean shows, which is kind of funny
Okay.
because it influences my like writing and my art. And I definitely can tell when I've been in different moods for different ones because they peek in.
Yeah.
But it forces me to disengage because I have to read the words. And so I can't be on my phone working.
Got it. Yeah.
So at the end of the night, like, and then the only English stuff is normally when the toddlers got the TV claimed.
Yes.
So like my art's not overly affected by that, but
No.
yeah, that was part of why that last pre-made that I made was a kitsune. I was like,
Okay.
oh, I don't want to do like I need
Yeah.
something, but I didn't want it to be too like in the box. So I was like, okay, I can make her like a thief or
Yeah.
an assassin
Yeah.
or something like that. I can do
Nice.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want it soon, but yeah, I want to make some more because I really like them.
Right? I know. I love doing a lot. I think that's another reason I like doing high and epic fantasy so much is because
Hmm.
not everyone I'm creating are humans, and and paranormal romance, like that's so much fun for me to get to do something that's not quite so perfect.
Yeah,
Humans, you really are in a box, but when you're doing these
yeah.
other things, especially because authors are really creative with the twists that they do.
Uh-huh.
Like I have a series coming up that they're mermaids, but they have like instead of a fish tail, they have like an octopus tail. And I'm
Oh,
like,
okay.
okay, like we're getting kind of like Ursula, but pretty Ursula sort of vibes. And I am
Yeah,
all about that. Like that sounds so
cool.
much fun to me. Yeah.
That's very cool.
It's funny. Ursula terrified me as a kid too. I never could watch like Little Mermaid. No. And Little Mermaid always ended early. Like I feel like Little Mermaid has two endings.
I
And
don't
like when
remember it enough.
Ursula comes back and the king kills her,
Yeah,
like we never watched that because it scared me as a kid so bad.
I can imagine. Yeah, yeah. I mean, my first movie when I watched it was Bambi, and apparently I cried so much they didn't take me to another movie for 3 years.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I remember having a similar reaction to Alice in Wonderland, which is funny because I love like all versions of Alice in Wonderland except for the Disney one. The Disney one as an adult still scares me.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
doesn't he?
there's just something kind of creepy about it.
Mm-hmm.
But like the Johnny Depp version, oh, the aesthetic of that version of Alice in Wonderland is so pretty and like very inspirational for me because I like the like sort of funky. I function in organized chaos, as you can probably tell from like everything I do. That's where I thrive, which I feel like is part of why my art style is the way it is. Because I feel like my art style is organized chaos.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, dear.
It surprised me when I was looking at cover designers. I even looked at Triff because I used to be
Mm,
obsessed with their work. I feel
mm.
so dumb that I didn't realize until the like a couple months ago that it's two people and not just
I
one.
know.
Because this
I
whole time I
know.
thought it was one person.
I know. I did for ages, and it was when it was the when Alex was running the gallery, and they did that
And they did the
auction.
auction.
And I'm
Yeah, I was
like,
like, how did
hang
they
on a
get
minute, they've got to
double
match
the
some of those
covers?
covers. Yeah, how have they got
Yeah.
six? And that was when I
And
found
they're
out
like,
it was two. I
right.
had no
Yeah,
idea.
me too. I had no
I
clue.
was
And it
like,
totally made
how are they
sense.
working so fast?
Right. I know. I wondered that too. Like, how are they putting out covers so
Yeah,
fast? Because I knew they had to be getting booked up for customs.
yeah.
Hi. Yes, you're back. Yeah, I had no clue. I messaged them because I was like, well, if I can't find anyone else, like I could see them being good enough for me to be like, okay, they could make my cover,
Yeah.
And I had messaged them to like find out what their pricing and availability and all that kind of stuff was. And but I it wasn't until then that I realized that they're probably the closest to the direction of art style that I feel like I've gone.
Oh, cool.
Like
I like this stuff.
I do too. I was disenchanted for a while. I got kind of bored of it, and then they both did like a big level up. Hi. Yeah, they both did a huge level up, and it was really interesting to watch as one of them went super typography object based
Oh,
covers, and then the other one seems to be focusing on the people based ones. So like they're suddenly, I feel like I'm not seeing because for the long, I feel like when we first started, they only did people ones.
yeah, that's all I've seen from them because I haven't seen anything for ages because I turned notifications off for the gallery since I don't post to it. So
Yeah, well, and honestly, the galleries kind of died a lot.
exactly.
Like a
I kind
lot, a
of gave
lot.
up on it. So I just turned notifications
Well,
off anytime I
yeah,
saw their stuff. So
authors kind of abandoned it as well. I've had a lot of authors tell me, I love you, but you were smothering me. Right, in your bed. In your bed. Go. Go. In your bed. Up. Good boy. Sorry. Oh, weird like that. Yeah, the
yeah.
gallery, that was it kind of died off after they had allowed a couple things of drama in it, and a lot of authors were like, we don't want to support that. So it went from like the one place on Facebook that you were, if you could get your cover in it, it was almost guaranteed to sell. Like I feel
Oh,
like that was the case when we first started. And then last fall, it like suddenly
yeah.
stopped.
I had a lot in there when it was like Ryan, um,
Mhm.
and then I had a few in there when it was Alex, and I haven't posted to it since. Um, but I'd say about half of them sold, probably.
That's
You
still not
know, and
bad.
I posted customs in there saying, just revealing the cover and things, and I had people go, "Oh my god, I love that! Can you do me something similar?" And then I never hear from them again.
Oh,
Yeah, it's frustrating. So
yeah. Trying to think. Like I remember Book Cover Marketplace was also really big. And then they did a
it was.
month-long event for
Mm,
Halloween last year, and that like killed the group.
that what it was. I just knew it was dead, and I'm just like, okay, next.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, the only places that I feel like I'm really seeing stuff right now is book cover events and indie author premates. Like I feel like I'm not seeing stuff happen in the other ones anymore.
no, me neither.
So,
Cover Cult Coalition or whatever they're called. I
oh
don't know
yeah.
if you've been in there.
I keep
They,
kicking myself that I keep forgetting. Like I see them posting about events coming up, and I have not even done one yet because I keep forgetting to
I know,
do it.
same. I know. I need to like find out how to join it and actually get one in there. But
Well, and I remember they had something about how like you had to do like you have to fill out a form and be approved, and but when I'm seeing like MC and Kuro in it, I'm like,
exactly.
there's no way that, and like they know me and they
Yeah,
put stuff in my events, so I'd be
yeah,
surprised if I was not approved. Honestly, at this point, don't get me wrong, I feel like I make some stuff that's not my best, not because I tried to, but just because it got to a
yeah,
point where I'm like, this will sell, this is marketable for an author, but I don't have the ability to make it what I want it to be. I have some stuff like that sometimes, but I don't remember where I was going with that.
yeah.
Sorry.
Ah, that's the way it
Yeah.
is as we grow. Probably always going to be that way, I'm sure Jeff
Yeah.
thinks of his stuff sometimes. I know he doesn't like some of his stuff. He says so. I'm sure every designer's the same. You look back and you think,
He's been
no.
interesting to watch his level up that he's done.
Mm.
Like Jeff's, I feel like the last 6 months, Jeff's artwork, I mean, there's a reason he's a $2,000 cover designer.
Oh yeah,
Like
totally. Yeah, every
his
single piece
work,
he said he doesn't like, I'm like, well, I'd like to do that.
right?
But, yeah,
Yeah, it was funny. I had someone when I was a teenager tell me, like, you always compare your worst against someone else's best.
yeah,
And like that most artists and writers don't like, never feel like they're good enough because they're comparing to someone else's good enough and
yeah,
not to their own. And like, you're never going to end up on that same path. And that was so game changing for me
yeah,
of just being able to shift that mindset and
yeah,
process and function. And
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, you look at quotes and you see Agatha Christie saying she doesn't feel like an author, and you're like, well, no one else does that. You know?
Right?
I mean, you just got to let it
Yeah,
go, and you know, you are what you are. It's just a label at that point. So who cares?
it's
Just
true.
carry on doing it.
That was kind of my aha moment. I mean, like I said, I've been writing this book for 5 years, and I was like, it's never going to get to a point where I'm like, this is perfection. Like, if I ever did get to that point, any bad reviews would even just make it worse.
Yeah,
And so I was like, you know what? At this point, like, I'm doing a last round of edits, but after that, it's going to go out into the world, and the stuff that I've learned for leveling up, it's going to go to my next project. And like, I'm just going to make every project better. And at some
mm-hmm.
point in time, I have to say, this is good enough for now. And my audience can see my growth.
Exactly. It's the only way. Everybody looks back on stuff they did at the beginning of their career, whatever that career is, and
Yeah.
thinks, oh my goodness, what was I doing? But that's where you were
Yeah.
then. So,
Yeah.
Oh.
Like like I said, I mean, even some of the really embarrassing art of mine from when I first started cover design.
Yeah.
Sad.
Hey, we're all the same. We're all the same. I know.
I'm sure the stuff that I'm making now, later I'll look and be like, ah. I was excited though, so I finally put some of my stuff on ArtStation, just because as I'm pushing more illustrated, I think I'm gonna pull more. I'm pulling more people looking for that, and I feel like a lot of authors go to ArtStation. I
Yeah,
know
it's
they
great.
do because they will send me links to artists on there and go, I really like this, and go, well, remember, I'm not them,
Yeah.
but like,
Yeah.
um, I finally got some stuff on there, and I got really excited that I actually had a few people decide to follow me and like some of my stuff. And I was like, oh, I'm not totally terrible.
Yeah. I put my stuff up on ArtStation or DeviantArt, one of the two. I don't remember which. Right when Jeff told us to, right at the beginning
Yeah.
of
I did
Illustrious.
a couple too then.
Yeah.
I just barely started updating it. Like, just
Yeah.
barely started updating it.
Yeah. I need to do that. I kind of
I feel
forgotten
like
it there.
me too. Me too. And then again, until I started looking for someone to do this cover for World Walker. And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
hard. There's not very many because it's so niched. Like, I mean, literally, I understand now why I book almost anytime I see someone asking for epic or high fantasy that's like more traditional of those styles. I'm starting to understand why they usually book me, because I'm like, there is no one else out there that's doing it like this, that's
Yeah.
in those genres and can like show, like, I was literally going, I need a me. like don't wrong. Like I even literally was at the point where I was like, okay, if I can't find anyone, I'm gonna have Karen do it. Like, if I cannot figure out anything else, I will have Karen do it. And like the only reason I didn't have, like, you weren't like the first person on my list was because I was like, well, her art style is a little bit off from my writing style. So I was like, I just
Yeah.
want to see if I can find someone that it will like mesh a little bit better. And but yeah, like literally that was the point I was at. Was I was like, if I can't find anyone
Oh my
else, I'm
goodness.
hitting up Karen, and Karen's gonna make me something amazing.
Well, that would have been awesome. So thank you.
Don't be surprised if like later I'm seeing stuff and I'm like, okay, I can't. Karen, please save me. Like, this isn't gonna work as a cover. Yeah,
Oh
don't be
dear.
surprised.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh dear. Yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
what I'd do without our little mastermind group, I have to say. I'm forever posting stuff up in there, and so lucky we got that feedback. It's just, yeah,
Yeah.
makes the world of difference.
I agree. And I feel so bad because I feel like I don't help out as much as
You do.
I could.
You
But it's
do.
mostly just because I forget to check Discord. So I've been trying to make it a routine to at least look at it once a day so that I
Nice.
see it and I can,
Yeah.
like, even if it's hours later, I can at least give something that might be, helpful for in the future, or if someone's still working on it, they can look at
Yeah.
it. But
Yeah. Mine's open all
if
day, so you know.
I worked on my computer, it would be like
Got you.
my
Yeah.
computer, because my baby girl likes to be like mommy. So if my computer's on, she needs to come play on it. And
Yeah.
I can't afford that.
No.
Yeah. So when my
Yeah.
computer's on though, like at night, that's why most of the time, like, I respond really quickly at night.
Got you.
That's because
Makes sense.
it's up and it pops up and it tells me, but the rest of the time.
Yeah. 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 Whereas I like, I do quite a lot on Discord, so I have it up the whole time and trying to comment in the group, keep it going.
That helps. Well, and like I've also, so Moms Who Write also has a Discord. They've got a Facebook group. They're big on TikTok. Um,
Oh,
but they have a Discord group that's been really fun for, like, they
okay.
help kind of share like marketing advice and like refer people for each other. And they even have a like, we'll do like writing sprints on there. And so
Yeah.
that's been kind of, I do so much better. Like, for example, you know me, I'm the worst at taking breaks. Hey, it's good to see you. So I've been watching people pop in and out, and I'm like, oh, it's one of my authors. She's on here. So
Oh, cool.
one of the ones that I'm beta reading for. Like oh hey. But yeah, it's been I'm terrible at taking breaks. And I know that I
Yeah.
write better if I can like pause for just a couple minutes, or I like even my art is the same sort of thing. If I can take a second to reset my brain, then I can see stuff that I didn't miss. Hey. And yeah, that's been a big help. If I have other people that are also reminding me to take a break and we sit and chat for a few minutes, I do so
Yeah.
much better and I
Yeah.
get a lot more done.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not good at taking breaks either. I tend to sort of like zone in, and the next thing I know, a couple of hours have gone.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
too. There's a lot of nights where I'm like, oh wow, my husband wakes up in half an hour. I
Oh,
should like go to bed so he doesn't know I stayed up so late and maybe I can cuddle for a couple minutes.
oh my
Like,
goodness.
oh, that happens at least 3 or 4 nights a week. I feel
Oh,
so bad. It's part of why we had to start implementing like date night, like a every other week
yeah.
we alternate with a family date versus an us date. And we don't have babysitters. And with COVID, it's been like impossible anyways. So normally he stays up late or I get up early so that we can have a date that's just like the two of us chilling on the couch, cuddling, watching a movie or something.
Wow.
Um, and like I had to start doing that because of me working through the middle of the night to do
Yeah.
covers. Like I need to put in that time for my family.
Yeah.
It's tough to balance, but
I bet. Yeah, I'm lucky.
yeah.
Mine works the same hours as me, so sorry, I managed to cut myself to earlier on today.
Oh,
Yeah, we had the knives sharpened and I was doing the washing up, and somehow a fly got in the house and it buzzed me, and I jumped and dropped the knife, and then instinct kicked in and I grabbed it, and of course it's straight to
oh,
my
oh
so,
no.
yeah, blood everywhere. So got a band-aid on and now take the band-aid off and it's kind of throbbing.
Is that on like your drawing pen like
Thankfully,
hand?
no. It's on my left hand.
Okay.
It's not
'Cause
desperate.
that
It's
would
just
be
poor.
so miserable. Oh, like
Yeah.
hours drawing. Because I know my finger, like how I hold my pen, that would be right where,
Uh huh.
yeah.
That's possible. Absolutely impossible. I ended up buying myself a ring, so that I've got it here, but
Oh,
it's just where my pen hits. So I got my pen here, and I've got a little button for like brush and eraser that I've programmed, and I end up doing this, and then suddenly I find out I'm erasing stuff that I'm doing, and I'm like, I've got to take the ring off.
oh no. You gotta okay, so my pen has buttons and like my board has buttons, but I
Yes.
have not programmed any of them.
Yeah.
I've
I did
I've had
initially,
this for
and
like
I
a
find I'm
year.
using the keyboard. So, but yeah, the
Yeah.
buttons still programmed.
So when you started cover design, did you start with Photoshop and with a pen
Oh yeah,
and
I did.
you're so good.
I've been on Photoshop since version 3, so I've been on it for since 2006.
I
So
was always
you
too poor.
yeah, I can't imagine using anything other than Photoshop because been doing it too long. And
Yeah.
my hubby, when was it? 2009, 10, somewhere like that. He found this tiny little bamboo tablet, 6 inches. And he asked for it for his birthday one year, or birthday or Christmas, one of the two, and it was only $15. It was not big deal.
Oh,
And
nice.
so he got that, and then it kind of sat in the drawer because he used Photoshop
Unless
now
you're
as he
doing what we
this.
do. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I started using it because I was at this point helping his business, which is like web design or web development. So I was doing like the design stuff for it. So I was trying to sort of do bits, and I found that I could use the pen a bit, but not particularly well. And so by the time I started on Photoshop, I then obviously got that, and I used that for the first nearly a year, I think.
Mhm.
This tiny little, and I'm not kidding, it was that size of the area that you could draw in. It was
I
tiny.
love that.
Oh dear. But it worked great, and it worked great until I wore the pen nibs down so much that it became kind of unusable. And so I thought, well, you know what, if I'm going to replace it, I may as well buy something decent. instead.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah,
my first 6 months, I used Krita, which was
I've
free.
never heard of
That
that.
was, yeah, so it's a free one, but it's the art side of it is amazing. Like if you're just doing art, it's free, it's great. It is the worst though for typography. And
Oh,
so like you can change the fonts, but like you can do nothing to the fonts,
oh,
if that makes sense. So like there's no treatment, there's no layering, there's no changing the
oh,
color. Like it's literally just here is a font. And you can't change the kerning, like the space between the letters. You can't.
oh, that's not good.
So I was using that and a mouse
Oh
for
wow.
the first 6 months
Oh my God.
until
Yeah.
I had I've always had the rule that all of my business expenses for this from month one has to be able to be covered from one pre-made sale a month. So like if I book one custom or sell one pre-made, because my
Yeah.
pre-mades are cheaper, you know.
Yeah.
So if I sell one, it has to cover all of my expenses so that the rest of it can be used for taxes and profit and to live off of. And
That's really
that has
good.
been such a game changer. So yeah, I couldn't afford Photoshop until about because my
Yeah.
covers were so cheap. Because it's like
Yeah.
$50 a month. And so yeah, I couldn't do that. And then when I got
10 bucks
Photoshop,
a
I
month.
was like, okay, yeah, for some reason, what are you paying for? I'm like super
ten
curious. What are
bucks
you
a month.
paying for Photoshop?
10 bucks a month.
I don't know how you're getting it for $10 a month. I'm a little
You want
jealous.
the photographer's package? I will send you the link.
That's a good idea. I should look at that.
It's only Photoshop. You can't get anything else. I've had to
Yeah.
upgrade and get Illustrator for the traditional
Oh, do you know,
publishing. It's not your
maybe
slate
it's
design.
maybe I was
Uh,
just so new when I signed up. Because yeah,
no, if
I
you
have
go to
someone
the
saying they're
website,
paying $10 a month.
it says Photoshop is what you're paying. But if you look like in depth and stuff and start finding things, there's a photographer's package, and I think it's 9.99.
Okay.
So 10 bucks basically.
Yeah, she's saying she uses Photoshop and Lightroom and she pays $10 a month. I think I
Yeah,
was just so new and overwhelmed by all the information for it that I was like, I don't know. And so the only reason I went
yeah,
with Photoshop when I was like, okay, I need to upgrade was because like almost all of the tutorials that you see out there for cover design and for art
yeah,
and for typography is Photoshop. And
yeah,
so I was like, I'll do that. And then I really wanted a sketch pad where like you could see what you were sketching
yeah,
and I couldn't afford that. So KD had a referral link for one that was like $50. And now, like when I had the money, I bought like a brand new computer and everything. And I was like, I had the money to upgrade to that. And I was like, I think it would be weird to go to that now because I've gotten so used to drawing on one that you don't see the work. So I like look at the screen and it
yeah.
would just be weird. I think it would actually slow me down for a while to swap over to that now.
It's different. Well, I tried one because when I went from this little bamboo that you know sort of you look at the screen instead of like it. Um, I found I went to get what was it, a Huey on, and I thought, well, I've been using a 6 inch. I need only a 13 inch. I really don't need, And Ryan was saying no, he's got a 26 inch or whatever it was, and it's
Oh,
just too
that's a
small, and
beast.
get the big one and stuff. And I'm like, my hand moves this much. I'm getting a small one. I didn't realize that when you have the screen one, you've got all the menus and everything from Photoshop in on that screen. And I had no idea. I didn't have the concept that that's how it worked. I thought it would just be my artwork and the rest would be on, my computer screen. And
Yeah.
so when I got it there, I found I had like literally this much space to see the artwork and it was just unusable.
Oh,
So I had to send it back in the end. And I couldn't get it to work with my computer for some bizarre reason. I don't know why. I programmed it such that I wanted it as the third screen because I've got two screens, and I wanted
uh-huh.
it as to be like this side, sort of this side instead of on this side. And for some reason, I had to flip it. And when I flipped it, all the buttons stopped working. And I'm just like, this is just driving me nuts. I can't work like this. So
Oh,
I just ended up sending it back, and I've gone for another one that is a draw, sort of like you look at the screen and you draw,
yeah.
on a tablet kind of thing. But
That's what I use. But
yeah,
so it's funny because I I turned a space upstairs. My hallway upstairs is kind of weird. and it's like
Uh-huh.
super wide. And so that's why I have bookshelves all on one side with drawers and everything. But then the other side has a desk, and I have a like really good computer and everything hooked up to it. But I can't use it most of the time because the light and sound keeps up my husband and my daughter because it's just outside their doors. So
Yeah.
I like almost exclusively work sitting on my couch downstairs in my living room. Like
Wow. Yeah.
it's I it's hard for me to get up and down because I'm having to like pull that sketch pad off of my computer, tucking it on one side. Like everything has its place. And then half the time my couch eats my pen and I have to go hunt it down.
Yep.
like,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh
Oh my
man,
goodness.
these will be good
Yeah.
stories for when I'm
Yes.
like,
Yes.
I can see my retirement party and I'm like talking about digging, like having to move the couch to find my pen again.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. No, we both work from home, so we've decided we kind of went without a dining room. Our office is the
Mhm.
dining room, so literally the kitchen is just there.
Yeah.
Because, we thought that was more important. So we spend most of our time at our desks. So we just got them there and then we can look outside and yeah, it just makes the quality of life so much better than where we were doing because we were like crammed into a small bedroom and we had to have like scaled down desks and it was
Oh,
just yeah.
that my dream someday is to buy a place where I will have an office and,
Yeah.
you know, something like that. But that's a ways down the road.
Yeah. We
I
just
will be
created
here
one.
for,
We
yeah.
just decided
Well,
we okay, we don't need a lounge and diner, we'll just have an office.
so excuse the mess. I'll show you. This is like my entire downstairs, okay? It's literally just one small, like
Oh wow.
400, no, like 300 square foot room. And so
Yeah.
it's everything. And so there's like no, and the upstairs is literally just the two bedrooms.
Yeah. We've got
Oh,
three
so
bedrooms
she turned her
upstairs.
dining room into her library and works on the
Oh,
couch with a TV tray for her desk. That's really smart, honestly. The TV tray
yeah,
is really smart.
it is.
Right now, I my couch is a recliner couch. So
Oh no.
like I basically use that as like I kick it up and I basically use that as my like table space to put stuff. That's part of
Wow.
why it
That is
takes me
not,
so much to get up and down from the couch because I have to
yeah.
like clear
Move
it off
everything.
before
I've
I can
done
even get
that.
up.
I've done that. I used to write on the couch. Here's mine. So you've got the the kitchen there, and the hubby there.
Aw, hi hubby. Oh, that's cute though. I like it.
Yeah. So yeah, we love our house.
That's my dream. Someday. Don't get me wrong, I'm grateful for the place that I live, but yes. Yeah, I'm saying her old couch was a recliner, so she totally gets it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Couch reclines. And, yeah. I did all my writing on the couch.
I told my husband that we either were going to need to get a sectional or a reclining couch so that like the whole family could pile on it and it'd be comfortable
Mhm.
for watching movies. But when it's not too hot, I built a pergola in my yard and like going
Lovely.
up the sides of it are planter boxes. So when it's cooler, because I mean, North Carolina is hot and humid, so it's miserable to be outside right now. But when it's cooler and there's plants in it, it's really like, it's so pretty. Like, I made a solar chandelier in it, and like, it's so nice to go right out there because
Yeah.
it has that like fantasy vibe. And so, yeah, so I write in there when I can, but
Oh,
most of it is sitting on the couch.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I'm in
it
Florida.
is really, yo, yeah, you get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's cool too because I'll be out there, especially if I start writing in the evening during like spring or fall, I have the fireflies like surrounding
Oh
me.
wow.
Like just adds that like extra level of just magical pretty,
Yeah.
which
Wow.
probably has something to do with why I write what I
Yes.
write.
Yes. I don't like bugs though, even fireflies. I tend to
They
scream the
leave
place
me
down if one
alone.
comes near me.
they leave me alone, and it helps that a lot of, so like I specifically plant plants that like bugs are not attracted to and that deter mosquitoes and stuff. So for the most part within my pergola, I have no bugs, no mosquitoes. Like I step out of it, yeah, I'm swarmed by mosquitoes. But inside my pergola, I don't have that problem, and it's the best.
Huh, I have to find out where those plants are.
Like like marigolds is one of the ones that they tend to not like.
Oh wow.
And there's a bunch. There's like a bunch of herbs and stuff that you can plant, and it's such a huge help. But
No idea.
yeah, that's one
So
of my
we get
little,
porch and stuff, but we still get bugs and yeah.
yeah. Yes, mint, basil, and catnip.
Oh
I'm
wow.
the worst with names. But yeah, mint, basil, and catnip are ones that are supposed to be good for that. And that's probably part of why I don't have too much of a problem. I like to munch when I'm writing or I'm like doing stuff. And so on either side, I have like a glider bench seat sort of thing that's one of the pieces of furniture out there in it. And
Yeah.
hanging on either side of it, I have four like giant hanging baskets that all have herbs in them. So I can like, and then I have some big pots on either side, and I have all of those in them. The big pots are the mint because mint just goes crazy. Like,
Wow.
oh man, mint is one of those things that I kill grass. Like I kill everything. And for some,
Yes.
like mint is one of those things I do not,
Oh
that
wow.
likes me for some reason.
Huh. Wow. Well, might have hope for me then. I do not have a green thumb. Quite the opposite.
No,
We've managed to
it
keep
was
one
funny.
alive, but that's it.
Like, I love when people ask me, like, is your main character in your book like you? And I'm like, well, the fact that she's obsessed with food, yes. The fact that she kills every plant, yes. But other than that, no. Like, I will give those. Like, it was funny because on TikTok for a while, there was this whole thing about how people wished that like characters in books like actually ate the food that they describe and the stuff or like interacted with it somehow. And
Mhm.
I'm sitting there going, well, book two has creme brulee making dragons, and book one, my girl is like a kitchen chef, and half the time
Yep.
she's like eating stuff or like, yeah, like that will not be a problem in anything I ever write.
Yep. And hello, who just said hi.
Hey, that's awesome.
Oh dear. Yeah. Mine did a lot of alchemy, so I had all sorts of stuff exploding and
I
everything, tasting, because she was drinking potions and all the effects of the potions. It was a lot of fun.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Totally fun.
Yeah.
Well, so I'm curious then, because I know you don't write anymore because you've gone full time with cover design. I
Yeah.
mean, again, you're good, and the fact that you're doing trad and indie, like, 'cause that is another thing that I feel like a lot of authors don't know is that most of the traditional houses, even the big ones, their cover design department no longer has cover designers in it. They have people who are like supposed to be marketing specialists, but they're
Yeah.
hiring indies. And
Yeah.
so I feel like that's something that most people don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. It probably isn't. I mean, I think the one I'm working with has some in-house, but they do the non-fiction. So, you know, you get a fiction in and they didn't have anywhere to send it. So, yeah, it's amazing. Because there's only so much you can do with topography. Sometimes
yeah,
you need characters. So
yeah.
yeah.
So I'm curious, have you ever had anything for them? Because I know that you send like multiple options usually from like the
Yeah.
stuff you've shown me. You typically send like three options. Have you
Yes.
ever felt like they chose the least marketable of the options or like your least favorite of the options?
Funnily enough, no. Every single one, I've done the first one and thought this is the one they're going to pick, and then I've done a second one, and up till the last one, I'd only sent two options, and every time they've picked the one I would have chosen. It's
Oh,
funny.
that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. This one I was
That's
actually surprised.
awesome.
The one that you saw, I sent three options, mostly because I made the first one because I didn't know quite what else to do. It was going to be a symbol cover. And then I made a
Mhm.
different symbol cover. I thought, no, I like that one better. I'm sending both. And then I made a person cover. And I actually liked the person cover better. And this time they chose the symbol cover. But I liked the symbol cover. And I think it'll do well because it's YA dystopian.
Oh
Even
yeah.
person cover. I really liked the person cover. I might try and turn that into a pre-made with a different character because I really liked it.
There's been a few times that I've worked on, because I'm kind of the same. Typically when I'm working with
Yeah.
somebody, I send them multiple options in the beginning, especially because it helps me narrow it down.
Okay.
So I have someone over here asking if you could share how you got to work with traditional publishers.
Well, I actually knew the guy because I used to run the book marketing summit, which was like a big interview thing. And I interviewed the publisher on there because I wanted a publisher's perspective of how to market a book. And so when I became a cover designer, I got in touch with him and said, by the way, I'm now a full-time cover designer. Um, are you looking for a cover designer kind of thing, sort of part-time? And he came back to me and said, yes, please send us your portfolio. I've been doing covers for them ever since.
That's awesome.
Just on a
Yeah.
month.
Okay. So I'm the worst at first names, but
Yeah.
the person asking that, she knows you as well. I see her a lot in the like marketplaces with us,
Oh,
but
cool.
yeah, I'm the absolute worst at names. So please forgive me for that. Karen, I can only remember her name because I literally talk to her every single day and she can't get rid of me. Yeah, Susanna. Yeah, from Elephant Books. But yeah,
Okay.
I am the absolute worst. I have like a group of like 10 designers that I talk to multiple times a day, and Karen is one of them.
Yeah.
But part of it is because Karen and I started at the same time. Like I think we were what, a month apart from when we
Yeah.
started our businesses. And
Yeah.
so we were going through the same
Oh, yeah.
process. And
Yeah.
so we've kind of been critique partners for
Yeah.
what, like
Which is
9 months
awesome.
now.
Oh, several
Yeah,
months. Yeah. Yeah. And now we got the mastermind going. There's the four of us in it. Or
yes.
five. So, yeah.
Which has been
Yeah.
really good because I feel like all of us have been leveling up really fast because of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're all
Yeah, that
slightly
was
different,
one.
good at different things. And so it makes the feedback really good. You know?
Exactly. Yeah, because the ones that are all part of that little mastermind group we all kind of do similar, we have some crossover in genres and style, but then we all kind of, I mean, like I focus mostly on high and epic fantasy. I do some like paranormal fantasy and I do some steampunk and I do some like, I have my fingers in a lot of things, but the main things that I do are that. But then like you've been an interesting process to watch. Like
Yeah, I've been everywhere.
you have been it's one, you quickly pick up and you kind of nail any genre that you've tried to do. And it's been so fun to watch you as you've been like deciding what you really want to do.
Yeah. That's been
Like
the hard bit, is working out what I want to do and what I want to let go, because then I can focus better on
you
the
love it all
market.
too.
Yeah, I know. It would be
Yes.
nice to do it all, but yeah.
Well, like your man chest stuff blew me away, and I was like, "How is she?" Because I remember I tried. I had a short stint where I tried man chest, and then that was when I was like, "Okay, I can't do steamy covers." Susanna's like, "Can I be one of the cool kids, please?" But yeah,
Oh,
it was like,
I just had to
oh my
go.
goodness,
Yeah.
it looked
It took,
so bad. I tried to do it for that man chest auction. I
that's
just opted out of it
that's wow.
because no, it was
Yeah.
so bad. And it didn't help. My husband I swear every time I was looking through stock photos, my husband would come down and he's like,
What are you
"What
looking
are
at?
you looking at?" I'm like,
Yep.
"I swear it's for work." Like, I promise I'm not just sitting here looking at like naked dudes.
I know.
Sorry.
I know. My husband loves it when I do a harem cover because he's like, ooh.
I bet. I see. Okay, so Susanna was saying that she's been selling a lot of illustrated. And yeah, that is something I've been finding too, is I have been I would say about 90% right now of my stuff. I don't do full illustration yet.
Yeah,
And I'm not entirely sure that I will ever go 100% to that because I really enjoy the 3D rendering process for helping me build the composition, but then I alter them and I do that. And like right now, most of my stuff for high and epic fantasy, because other genres it's not as appropriate.
yeah,
But there's other ones that I do. I will probably always do some 3D rendering with illustration. Right now, it's mostly just faces that I'm using stock photos for with like occasional magic effects or something. But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
she had a baseball player blown up on her screen cropping the crotch when her husband came in. Oh my goodness, that's awesome.
That is
That is
awesome.
awesome.
Oh, that's
Oh,
crazy.
oh, and like 3D rendering, that is another thing. I cannot like if I want to work in like a coffee shop, I have to do all of my people rendering
Yeah,
before I go
yeah.
because well, bam, here's a naked woman just
I
sitting
know,
there.
I know.
I
I
can't have
have
that
that
out in a coffee shop.
trouble.
I'm gonna get kicked out.
Yeah, I have that trouble because I do the first kind of hour or two on like Discord or Zoom or whatever they'll get on. And so you're like, okay, right, we're going to bring the character up. They're going to be naked. Deal with it or
Yes.
close your eyes. I put some clothes on it.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
But yeah,
Yeah.
it makes it quite entertaining. Some of the authors are like, ooh, I like him.
I
And others
bet.
are like, oh my goodness.
Well, and like sometimes I'll do live streams on here for while I'm working on pre-mades. And that's one thing I'm like, oh, I gotta make sure my renders are completely done before I do that because I do not want banned from TikTok for like nudity up
Yeah,
here as I'm trying to do a 3D model so I can get the position.
I
Um,
know. I know. I take to shoving clothes on and then worrying about the pose.
right? Yes, I
Oh,
understand that she does a lot of the rom-com romance YA stuff,
nice.
which I know Karen and I both have done some of those. Like I've done you'd actually probably be kind of surprised. I've done a lot of cozy
I've not
and
those.
yeah, I've done a lot of cozy ones, which is where I get my like vector experience
Mm.
in. Which I'm excited because Sarah Oliver is the only cover designer I know that's doing the fairy tale retelling, vector, and illustrated style stuff. I'm not entirely sure how, I think she probably does. I'm guessing because I recognize some of it. I'm guessing some of it's a mix, but it's been interesting seeing the vector art crossing over from just cozy mysteries
Yeah,
into the YA fairy tale retelling that's not
yeah,
steamy. That has been really interesting to watch. But
yeah.
so I've done some of those and I've done a couple superhero ones. I've done a couple,
I've done
I
one
did
super.
one thriller horror one and I'm like, yeah,
Yeah,
no, I can't do that.
I can't do those.
Like,
I've not done those.
oh, she's got some cozies on her calendar too. Yeah, I've loved doing cozies, but I feel like it's kind of a competitive market and it's an entirely different audience from high and epic fantasy. And
Yeah,
so um, right now I've been marketing because I've been working on my illustration. Um, I've been working a lot more in that direction.
yeah.
And especially
I
since
love.
right now that's the way my brain's working.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, and then having